Chapter 14. Hai Yunfan's absent-minded look when he left the backyard was seen by many people and caused countless speculations. It was no secret that this genius wanted to find a breakthrough with the village head. There were already 20 to 30 trial takers in the village. Most of them had tried their luck at the village head's house, but none of them had such a good opportunity. Hai Yunfan's success was not surprising. What was surprising was that after his success, he looked disappointed after his conversation with Wang Lu. That was to say, Hai Yunfan was humiliated by the mysterious person in the backyard. Unfortunately, Hai Yunfan, who was completely immersed in his role, did not care about what others thought. Completing the task in front of him was more important than anything else. He did not choose any of the 3 plans that he had told Wang Lu. Instead, he chose the most troublesome but also the most comprehensive method. He talked to the village head, Madame He Lu, and Auntie Lu separately. He used his amazing eloquence and all kinds of means to achieve his goal. Under his persuasion, the village head gave up his desire for Auntie Lu and re-evaluated his wife's decades of silent sacrifice. Tears streamed down his face. Madame He Lu forgave the village head's past mistakes, reflected on her impatience and even forgave Auntie Lu. As for Auntie Lu, she focused on running her pastry shop and devoted all her energy to her new adopted grandson, Wenbao. She no longer thought about the grudges of her youth. It took Hai Yunfan nearly 3 days to complete all this. In just 3 days, the grudges of the past decades vanished into thin air. The village head and the other 2 were like marionettes in his hands, acting according to a predetermined script. This 12-year-old prince had demonstrated his ability to manipulate people's minds to the extreme. The spectators couldn't help but sigh with emotion. At least in this round, Hai Yunfan's performance had already reached the pinnacle. Unless someone used a magical treasure or some sort of tool, or used a method that was close to cheating, it was impossible to do better than him. His outstanding performance also earned him a generous reward. After putting out the fire in the village chief's backyard, Hai Yunfan's favorable impression of the old village chief increased by a large amount. Now that he was a guest at the village chief's house, his treatment was even better than Wang Lu's. It was as if he was about to become the village chief's godson. It was not easy for a person without any lucky chance to achieve this, not to mention that he became very cute in the eyes of Auntie Lu and Madame Helu. Unfortunately, even after completing such an important part of the quest, the Peach Blossom Village was still not over. This was because Hai Yunfan had not yet found the entrance to the next level. Indeed, the village chief's problem had been solved, and he had become a favorite in the village chief's eyes. But then, no one knew. If it was said that it was too difficult to accumulate the village chief's favorability, then many of the trial takers who had chosen the easier quests would have their favorability almost maxed out. For example, a certain young man who liked an older sister had already pushed an older sister of a village girl over and over again. If you didn't take into account the village girl's 200-pound weight and thick stubble, it would be a commendable marriage. Even so, there was still no hint for the next step. So 2 days later, the young man who had been carrying heavy weights on his chest couldn't help but knock on Wang Lu's door with a pale face. "Master Wang Lu, please save me." Although Wang Lu had almost never left his house after entering the village, his reputation had spread like wildfire along with Hai Yunfan and Wenbao. Although the 2 of them had not received any hint for the next step, their progress was amazingly fast. It was obvious that they were being guided by an expert. In the past few days, even the little errand boy had begun to take action. So when people were at their wits' end, Wang Lu had become a life-saving straw. "Oh, you just said that these past 2 days were worse than being f***ed by a dog, but you couldn't get any clues for the next step, so you lost confidence in life? Sigh, then I advise you to kill yourself as soon as possible." "Ah? You think the immortal path is too simple?" Indeed, the Peach Blossom Village is a place that basically eliminates all violence and protects everyone's safety. But this safety is not a benefit provided by the Lingjian school. It's a condition to increase the difficulty of the immortal path and make you speechless. It's very difficult to pass this test. If you think you can pass it by being a duck for 2 days, then you're looking down on this village too much. Then what should I do? Being a duck for 2 days is not enough, so you should be a duck for 10 years. 10 years as a poultry. I wish you good luck. What? This is a very fair and reasonable condition. As long as you're a duck for 10 years, you can continue on the immortal path. If this condition was put outside, all the ducks in the world would be grateful to you. I'm a member of the royal family in Yuzhou. How can I be compared to a duck? Jiske, I don't like your attitude. As the saying goes, love your profession. Aren't you working as a duck right now? Why do you look down on your peers? How can you expect to be treated like a prince? In addition, it's also easy to speed up. Just learn from little Hai and do some difficult tasks. You should be able to pass in a few months. The boy who loved his sister dejectedly left Wang Lu's room. 10 years was a long road that made people feel despair, but he brought back an important piece of information. A few months. According to Wang Lu's deduction, even Hai Yunfan would need a few months to pass the trial, so wouldn't it take years for other people to pass the trial? This trial in the Peach Blossom Village was ridiculously long. However, from another point of view, with the Lingjian school's status in the Wanxian League, it was reasonable for them to set up such an immortal gathering. In the past, in order to test the newcomers, the 10,000 Arts sect had hundreds of participants survive in the swamp for 2 years. The Kunlun Immortal sect had carefully selected all the participants for 30 years, which was a legend in the industry. After knowing the astonishing length of the Peach Blossom Village, most of the participants couldn't help but slow down. After all, there was still a long way to go, so why rush? Therefore, the fact that Hai Yunfan didn't slack off was particularly eye-catching. After solving the village head's problem, Hai Yunfan continued to wander between the 3 characters, constantly expanding his influence. There were some things that Wang Lu didn't need to tell him. He naturally understood that there was no limit to how much favorability he could have. The current Hai Yunfan was just a benefactor to the village head and the others. His relationship with Auntie Lu was even less than that of Wen Bao. Therefore, Hai Yunfan wasn't surprised that he didn't get the next step. As long as he continued, success was only a matter of time. This kind of all-out effort consumed a lot of mental energy, especially for a 12-year-old child. However, Hai Yunfan was willing to endure it and persevered. TSK, second-rate aptitude, first-rate EQ, and superb perseverance. Little Hai, you're really a man. Brother Wang, you flatter me. But because of this, we'll probably have to say goodbye soon. Hai Yunfan's eyes lit up. You mean? Didn't you say it would take a few months? That's referring to the perfect completion. With your personality, you shouldn't be pursuing that, right? So that's how it is. Recently, I also have a feeling that the village head wants to talk to me about something, but it's not time yet. That should be the key to the next step. Hai Yunfan's next step came very quickly. On the 15th day after he entered the Peach Blossom Village, the village head, who had already been deeply moved by him, finally spoke to him. Child, there are some things that I think it's time to tell you. Even though Hai Yunfan was a shrewd person, he couldn't help but laugh. I've been waiting for you to say this for a long time. On the 3rd day, Hai Yunfan left the Peach Blossom Village. He had spent 18 days and was ranked first among the challengers, far exceeding the expectations of others. The reason for this was very simple. Before Hai Yunfan left, he had shared all the information he had obtained with Wang Lu. This was also an agreement between the two. According to Wang Lu's estimation, if he wanted to perfectly complete the village head level quest, it would take him several months. However, if he didn't aim for perfection and only wanted to pass, then he could greatly reduce the time required to complete the Peach Blossom Village quest. Of course, there would inevitably be some side effects. This was also the conclusion that Hai Yunfan came to after comparing it with the village head's indirect comments with Wang Lu's. Simply put, the result of the Peach Blossom Village would directly affect the starting point of the next trial, just like how the result of the Cloud Wave map would affect the Peach Blossom Village. Hai Yunfan barely completed the main quest with a passing score, so his starting point would not be too high. But since he was the village head, the reward would not be too low. According to Wang Lu's speculation, Hai Yunfan's completion rate was at most 30%. If he didn't rush and completed the main quest perfectly, he would have gained a great advantage in the Netherworld path. He might even have been able to pass the main quest as if he was walking on flat ground. However, Hai Yunfan's hasty progress had ruined all of this. However, for most of the challengers, this side effect was undoubtedly a great blessing. As a top sect, the second half of the immortal path of the Lingjian school, which was the Frozen Wind Valley and the Red Ridge Mountain, was extremely difficult. It was said that in the past 300 years, there had not been a single person who had successfully passed the immortal path. In the past immortal gathering, the few people that were recruited were all small fries from the Carefree Peak. The Lingjian school's method of recruiting elite disciples was still the same as most of the ancient sections. The elders of the school would go out and wander in search of immortal opportunities. Perhaps in 10 years or even 100 years, they would be able to find a good seedling. For this immortal gathering, most of the procedures were the same, but the appearance of the Peach Blossom Village was very sudden. Now that they thought about it, perhaps it was because the Lingjian school had lowered the difficulty. Thinking about this, Hai Yunfan, who had completed the A-level quest and left early, became a great incentive for the others. Although Hai Yunfan had passed the Immortal Gathering with the passing score, the others did not need to be impatient. The Immortal Gathering was not a race. As long as they could reach the finish line, they would pass. Unfortunately, in practice there were very few people who could pass. In the week after Hai Yunfan left, not only was there no one who could catch up to Hai Yunfan's footsteps, but there were 2 trial takers who went astray because they were too hasty, and their favorability points that they had painstakingly accumulated were wiped out overnight. For example, Xiaofang, listen to my explanation. I truly love you. I don't mind your strong waist and sexy stubble at all. You have to believe me, I'm not interested in Xiaolan at all. I don't care about soft hands or creamy skin at all. Xiaofang, please forgive me. You heartless man, get out of here. Chapter 15. The Peach Blossom Village was in a crisis of resources. 2 weeks after Hai Yunfan left, most of the trial takers had already lived in the Peach Blossom Village for a month. It wasn't a long time, but it was enough for most of the trial takers to get on the right track. Except for a few people like the prince of a certain country who failed halfway, the rest of the trial takers were silently accumulating their completion points, waiting for the moment to end their dormancy and break out in one fell swoop. After a month, the trial takers had almost figured out the strategy to conquer the Peach Blossom Village. Even though they didn't have the tacit understanding with the designer like Wang Lu did, the trial takers who had reached this point were all elites of their generation. They were all extraordinarily talented and intelligent. Bit by bit, the trial takers gradually gained more and more rewards. According to the summary of the trial takers, there were 120 villagers in the Peach Blossom Village, which was more than enough for more than 20 trial takers to divide. Most of the trial takers would focus on one person and try their best to accumulate their favorability. After a certain amount of favorability, they would trigger a special quest. After completing the special quest, they would be able to leave the Peach Blossom Village. Once this special quest was triggered, it would not appear again regardless of whether it was completed or not. For example, the village chief Auntie Lu or the heartbroken village girl Xiaofang, who could only eat 10 steamed buns per meal, would no longer look at the other trial takers differently and give them a special quest. The special quest was like a pass. Once it was completed, regardless of whether it was an A or C level quest, it would allow the trial taker to leave the Peach Blossom Village. However, the few A-level quests had either been mostly cleared, or they had been wasted by some good-for-nothings. There was really no room for them to get involved. As for B-level quests, they were also in high demand. Only C and D-level quests were rich. For those trial takers who had left the Cloud Wave map late and were unable to grab a high-level quest, this was like a bolt from the blue. However, there was always a way out. If the quality was not enough, then the quantity would make up for it. 10 C-level quests should be equivalent to a B-level quest, right? If it was 20 or 30 quests, then perhaps even an A-level quest would not be a problem. Naturally, the more trial takers who already had an A-level mission, the better. They were unwilling to fall behind. Therefore, even though there were 120 quests in the Peach Blossom Village, with more than 20 people competing for the quests, the resources were quickly exhausted. What was even more tragic was that not only did this competition not equalize the resources, it actually widened the gap between the rich and the poor. Those who had left the Cloud Wave map early on and had the luck to get the A-level quests were also successful when it came to snatching low-level quests. After a round of competition, they would be able to get more than 10 quests, and would soon be trapped in the Peach Blossom Village. After such a crisis of resources, conflicts could erupt at any time. At this moment, people couldn't help but think of one person. The mysterious person who had been hiding in the village chief's backyard from the beginning to the end, never making a move and never taking up any missions. It had been so long, what was he waiting for? Strange, what is this child waiting for? Up in the clouds, Lu Xian, who had been staring at the clouds in boredom for nearly a month, let out a long yawn. Because of the gambling, this trusted elder of the sect had been punished to watch over the Peach Blossom Village. For the past 20 days, he had been motionless like a rock. Apart from meditating and breathing in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, he could only watch the Peach Blossom Village as a pastime. Fortunately, the stories in the village were really interesting and he didn't feel bored at all. Especially the story of the prince and Xiaofang, which almost made him laugh while he was breathing in the spiritual energy, causing him to go berserk. However, as a spectator, Lu Xian was also a little dissatisfied. What was that village boy who had been warned by the sect leader doing? He had obviously achieved amazing results in the Cloud Wave map, but in the Peach Blossom Village he had completely slacked off. Had he given up on himself? It was impossible to observe from above the clouds, but the fact that Wang Lu hadn't gone out for more than a month was very clear. Even the servant beside him had already finished his mission, and now he was in the top 3 of the village in terms of completion rate. He was regarded as the apple of the eyes of countless aristocratic families, and was treated like a star. His treatment was even better than that of his master, who didn't want to improve himself. If this continued, the development of the situation could be predicted. He just didn't know how Wang Lu would feel about this. "Good morning, senior marshal brother." While he was deep in thought, the irritating voice of a woman that almost made his nascent soul disintegrate sounded in his ears. Lu Xian was extremely glad that his misty immortal heart had just been nourished by the spiritual energy, and he was able to summon the mysterious ice-fighting intent, in time, immediately suppressing the anger in his heart. "Oh, 5th junior marshal sister, what can I do for you?" "Nothing much, I just came here to play." As the woman in white spoke, she walked lightly to Lu Xian's side. 20 days, senior marshal brother, have you been touched by my genius design?" Lu Xian asked himself, and he was indeed a little surprised. There were no real people in this village, and every villager was a puppet created by an extremely clever formation. However, from their performance, they had far surpassed the performance of ordinary puppets. For example, the village head and a few other people were even close to the performance of real people. Of course, this was not to say that this was a great feat. The great formation of the Lingjian School's mountain gate was 10,000 times more powerful and complex than this one, but considering the 5th junior marshal sister's cultivation level, as well as her field of expertise, her attainments and formations were especially surprising. However, he was only surprised and he couldn't say that he was touched. "Do you know how much trouble you've caused for everyone? The entire immortal gathering has been turned into a mess by you." "No, I think the entire immortal gathering has been sublimated because of me. No one needs a sublimation like you." "Senior marshal brother, you're being naughty again. Although you say you don't want it, you still love the elites that I've selected through the checkpoints I've designed. Do you dare to say that you weren't moved by that kid from a week ago?" Speaking of that kid from a week ago, Lu Xian could not remain indifferent. That kid's temperament, intelligence, and emotional quotient were all top-notch. Although the grade of his spirit root was a bit low for the Lingjian school compared to his other advantages, the grade of his spirit root was not that important. If this kind of disciple was properly trained, he would not be much inferior to the few evildoers in the sect. The Misty Peak had not produced an evildoer for many years, so Lu Xian was indeed moved. But what does this have to do with the Peach Blossom Village? Hai Yunfan's performance in the Cloud Wave map is already very good. Well, at least he helped you eliminate the defective products produced by those few aristocratic families. Humph, Lu Xian snorted and did not deny it. Xie Qianlong and the other 2 disciples from the 3 aristocratic families were indeed not good enough for him, but according to the standards of the immortal cultivation world, the 3 of them were good talents. It was true that they were a bit ruthless, but this was not a problem in the immortal cultivation world. Fortunately, they had been eliminated by the Peach Blossom Village. Otherwise, if they were really recruited, it would be a headache. However, in order to make Lu Xian admit that the Peach Blossom Village was useful, it would be better to directly refine his 9-colored nascent soul. The Misty Peak Master very cleverly changed the topic. "Does your Peach Blossom Village have any punishments for those who slack off?" "Slack off?" The 5th junior marshal sister opened her eyes wide and looked at the clouds again and again. Finally, her gaze locked onto a certain person and her expression changed. "Senior marshal brother, you've made a mistake this time. This guy is not slacking off at all. Speaking of which, I heard little Ling Er say that someone broke my chain of quests in the Spirit Creek town. Could it be him? TSK, the working people are really talented. Even a mountain farmer can break my chain of quests. But it's not that easy to pass this test. Hey, let's not talk about other things, but it seems that your little servant is about to rebel. I wonder what you think." Just as everyone was waiting for Wang Lu to make his move, Wang Lu received a surprise. "Young master, I think I'm almost done with my quest." In the room, the little servant looked nervous. He was like a poor young man who had brought his lover who was unexpectedly pregnant to meet his father-in-law. Wang Lu maintained the calmness that he had maintained for a month. While flipping through the village head's book collection, he asked, "Which quest?" The little servant paused for a moment and said, "All 8 quests are almost done. According to young master, I evenly distributed the progress and tried to strengthen the relationship between the quest characters. It is indeed twice the result with half the effort, and it is easier to control the progress." "Not bad." And then? The little servant was stunned for a moment. He had been thinking for a long time and made up his mind to tell the truth. but the words were stuck in his throat. Wang Lu looked at him and said, "Since the quest is almost done, hurry up to finish the work and get out of here. What's the point of wasting time here?" The little servant was shocked. "Young master, I..." After a moment of silence he said, "Young master, although I don't know what you are waiting for, I am your servant. There is no reason for me to leave you and go on alone." Wang Lu sneered, "Do you believe what you said?" The little servant jumped 3 feet high. "I mean it." Don't jump, don't jump. You will be struck by lightning if you lie. Why did you jump so high? Do you think it is not easy for the thunder god to find the target?" "I..." The little servant was stunned by Wang Lu's words again. After a while he sighed, "Young master, if it were 2 months ago I would never have thought that I would have such a day." An ordinary little servant in a mountain village was lucky enough to catch a trace of immortal fate and have the opportunity to become an inner disciple of a top sect. I know that all of this is the gift of young master. If it weren't for young master, I would not have been able to get here. Young master's great kindness, I... Don't talk about great kindness. If you raise it to great kindness, wouldn't it be absolutely irreconcilable?" Wang Lu said with a playful smile, "In fact, you might as well be honest. You have lived in the village for a month and talked a lot with the other participants. You should know what it means to be able to cross the Golden Bridge. Immortal fate is immortal fate. It was not given by me, nor did it come from the wind. You were born with immortal fate. Even if there is no Lingzhen school, there will eventually be a sect that will find you. The path of cultivation is inevitable for you." The little servant did not speak because before he decided to show his cards to the young master, he had indeed convinced himself like this. "So now that you are about to walk out of the Peach Blossom Village with an amazing completion rate, and you will most likely be able to pass the next test and reach the Misty Peak, why waste your time waiting for me? The path of immortal fate has always been long and full of dreams, and nothing is guaranteed. Also, you should have made an appointment with someone, right?" The little servant's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Sure enough, the young master knew everything in the world without leaving the house. Wang Lu obviously did not leave the house, but he knew all the gossip in the village. The little servant had indeed made an alliance with one of the participants. The other party was a prince of noble birth with amazing talent. He saw the little servant's potential and spared no effort to befriend him, which soon moved Wang Zhong. The reason why the little servant left was very simple. First, except for Hai Yunfan, no one had left the Peach Blossom Village yet. If they left now, they could still be considered as the first group. Second, although Wang Lu was mysterious, he had not taken any action for a month. It seemed that he had run out of ideas. Not to mention, his magic was his own magic, not the little servant's. Do you want to be a little servant for the rest of your life, or do you want to become Wang Zhong? I think you should think about it. And the result of his consideration was the scene in front of him. However, unlike the little servant's worry, the young master did not care about his betrayal at all. It could even be said that Wang Lu had been looking forward to it for a long time. "Your pretense here is very ugly. I really don't care whether you are here or not, so please leave without any psychological burden." Wang Zhong's face suddenly turned red, but he did not say another word. He just silently knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Wang Lu 3 times. Then he raised his head and turned to leave. After the little servant left, Wang Lu could not help but laugh. "After kowtowing a few times, you've become so self-confident. As expected, you've turned over and become the master. Little Hai, you're right. This kid is indeed not a good person." Wang Lu's smile gradually became self-deprecating. To think that I helped him make such a mess of a strategy. As he spoke, he raised his arm and the hundreds of pieces of paper on the table scattered like flowers. They floated in the air, but no one knew that the actual value of each piece of paper was comparable to gold. "She has been with me for 7 years, but she can't even recognize the protagonist's halo. I really did not teach my daughter well. So now I finally understand how a stupid father feels when his daughter elopes with someone else. Forget it, I don't care so much. I have made sufficient preparations, it's time to act." After speaking, Wang Lu walked down from the bed and tore down the gauze covering the wall. If Wang Zhong was still here, he would definitely wet his pants. There were hundreds of pieces of fine Shen paper pasted on the wall, and every piece recorded the strategy of a character in the village. There were pictures and the content was very detailed, and it was many times more detailed than the version that the village's mutual aid organizations had made up for each other. It was true that he did not go out for a month, but he did not waste it. As a trial taker who walked out of the Cloud Wave map with a superb result, the benefits that Wang Lu received were far more than what the little servant saw. His relationship with the village head was not as simple as that of a landlord and tenant. Chapter 16. Oh, Wang Lu is making his move. Is that true? Quickly go and call people to watch. On the same morning that the errand boy and his two companions left the Peach Blossom village with an astonishingly high completion rate, Wang Lu finally ended his closed-door training. When he walked out, he attracted a lot of people to watch. Oh, so he's Wang Lu. So this is what he looks like. It's nothing special. I heard you guys talking about him before, and I thought he was a demon with a body length of 8 feet and a waist circumference of 8 feet. Tisk, wouldn't an 8-feet body be punished by the heavens? Don't be fooled by his ordinary appearance. This guy is the first person to walk out of the cloud wave map. Maybe he's just lucky. I don't think he's accomplished anything in the Peach Blossom village. Accomplished? Hai Yun Fan, who was the first to walk out of the village, completed the task under his guidance. Tiske, how high can his completion rate be if he only wants to be fast? He wasted the village chief's A-level task. Moreover, all the exclusive tasks in the village have been activated. Even if he ends his closed-door training, what can he do? Who knows? That's why everyone came to watch. We want to see what he's going to do. And what Wang Lu did next did not disappoint them. He went to help Auntie Huang fetch water from the east side of the village. Hey, are you kidding me? Auntie Huang's task has already been completed. Now she can't accept anyone as her godson. Why is he fetching water? The trial taker who took Auntie Huang's task was also puzzled. Auntie Huang's task was probably only D-level, and its value was in the bottom 3 in the village. It was not even worth mentioning. Who would have thought that the great Wang Lu would choose this task as the opening? They did not know what his intentions were. Wang Lu ignored the onlookers and concentrated on fetching water. Although he was of medium height, he had good physical strength. Not long after, he filled Auntie Huang's water tank. A young man thanked. Before Auntie Huang could finish, Wang Lu interrupted her. I want to go to your son's school. Auntie Huang froze for a moment, then nodded. After that, Wang Lu didn't even say a word. He put down his shoulder pole and walked next door. The person living next door was Huang Xiucai, the biological son of Aunt Huang. The value of the mission was much higher than that of his ordinary mother. At first, it was only a D-level mission, but later on, it became a chance for him to get to know an old pedant who lived in seclusion in the village. That was an A-level mission, and it was also the mission that little attendant Wang Zhong relied on to make a name for himself in the village. Now that Scholar Huang's task had been completed, after the little attendant left, he no longer pretended to be polite to the others, and the other trial takers were too lazy to pay attention to this worthless poor scholar. Now that Wang Lu was about to stride into the school, the challengers were all guessing how he was going to break the ice. Could it be that this elementary scholar has a hidden mission? It can't be. If that's the case, could it be that the other villagers also have hidden missions? Wang Lu has been in seclusion for so long because he's confident that he can activate the hidden mission? Next, Wang Lu walked straight into the school. Before Scholar Huang could say anything, he handed a stack of papers to him. Teacher, this is today's homework. At this time, the onlookers outside were confused. Wang Lu didn't have a teacher and he didn't pay the tuition fees. Logically speaking, he should be kicked out of the school. But now, not only did he swagger in, but he also said that he wanted to hand in his homework? When did he finish his homework? But today, Scholar Huang was teaching poetry, so what was written on the paper should also be poetry. Scholar Huang took the papers matter-of-factly, took a closer look and gasped. Did you really write this poem? Who else could it be? Wang Lu asked with a smile. Don't you see the yellow river's water coming from the sky, rushing to the sea, never to return? Have you read similar poems before? These poems are filled with sincerity and are impassioned. How can a 12-year-old child like you have such sentiments? I am gifted, the Wuxia star descending to the world. Wang Lu said with a smile, looking at Scholar Huang as if he was looking at a native dog in the village. Even an 8 or 9-year-old child wouldn't fall for such a ridiculous reason. But Scholar Huang thought for a moment, shook his head and sighed. Unfortunately, I've already taken in a disciple, or I'd definitely take you in. Wang Lu continued to chuckle, ignoring Scholar Huang's feelings. I have a favor to ask of you. Scholar Huang said with a righteous expression. Go ahead. I want your sweat towel, Wang Lu said, pointing at the towel that Scholar Huang had placed on the table to wipe sweat. Scholar Huang was stunned. You want this? Yes. After saying that, Wang Lu didn't wait any longer. He reached out and took the towel, then left. Scholar Huang was also a clever person. After being stunned for a moment, he put Wang Lu's matter to the back of his mind and began to read aloud to the children in the classroom again, as if nothing had happened. The trial takers outside the classroom were not surprised. Most of the villagers in the Peach Blossom village were like this. Except for when they had to activate a task, most of the time, they were as stupid as animals. What was strange was that Wang Lu was swaggering out with a poor scholar's sweat towel. What was he trying to do? Scholar Huang was not a virgin, and his sweat towel was sour and smelly. What was so fun about it? In the end, everyone watched as Wang Lu walked all the way to another well-known person's house. When he reached the door, several onlookers cried out in surprise. Xiaofang. This is Xiaofang's house. The others looked at each other. The village girl, Xiaofang, was a legendary figure in the Peach Blossom village. She had a square face and a full beard. She was 8 feet tall and had a waist circumference of 8 feet. She could eat 20 steamed buns and 10 plates of beef in a single meal. Outside the house, there were 2 stone dumbbells that weighed 100 pounds. She would swing them before and after meals as a pastime. Such a tough character would be a hero no matter where he was, but in the Peach Blossom village he became a village girl called Xiaofang. Moreover, it was a passionate Xiaofang who called for her true love. She monopolized the path of love, and only those who were loyal to her would be able to open the next path. Many trial takers rated this task as a legendary task that surpassed grade A. The prince of a certain country sacrificed everything to have sex with her, but with one mistake he lost everything. Unexpectedly at this time Wang Lu walked to the door with a smug expression. Unfortunately, if that prince had not activated the task with Wang Lu's talent, he might have been able to complete the task. Although just thinking about it made his stomach churn. But no matter what, Wang Lu no longer had a chance. As a result, Wang Lu directly knocked on the door and said, "Xiaofang, I have Scholar Huang's sweat towel." As soon as he finished speaking, the door opened. The village girl, Xiaofang, grabbed a greasy pig leg and said in a low, muffled voice, "What did you just say?" Wang Lu smiled, "I want to use the sweat towel that Scholar Huang has just used and hasn't washed yet in exchange for a bowl of your special steamed pork with rice flour." "You want my steamed pork with rice flour? Okay, give me the sweat towel." As Xiaofang said this, she reached out to take the sweat towel. The fat on her arms trembled, not knowing whether it was because she was too nervous or because the fat was too loose. Wang Lu did not stop her and let her take the sweat towel. Then, under the frightened gazes of countless people, Xiaofang held the sweat towel in her hands as if she had found a treasure, and suddenly buried her head in it to take a deep breath. At this time, a trial taker who looked like a beggar and exuded the aura of a defeated dog was suddenly shocked. "That's right, Xiaofang has a crush on Scholar Huang." Everyone looked back and saw that it was a certain prince who had been beaten to kidney failure by Xiaofang not long ago because he was too timing. His words were somewhat credible. Moreover, this manly village girl's way of expressing her feelings was so direct that even 10 people could understand it. Xiaofang seemed to be impatient to do something with the sweat towel. Her 2 beady eyes sparkled as she hurriedly walked into the house with the sweat towel. Even the pig leg in her hands was casually thrown to the ground. However, this village girl was a practical person. After a few minutes, Xiaofang came out with a big jar with a face full of joy. "You gave me the real thing. Thank you." Wang Lu took the jar and his relatively strong arms sank. This jar of steamed pork with rice flour was as practical as Xiaofang. And although the jar was sealed, an unconcealable aroma spread out, stirring people's appetites. If the village girl Xiaofang had any redeeming qualities, it would be her superb culinary skills. "Thank you." Xiaofang patted her chest. "Don't mention it. Next time you have such good things, don't hesitate to bring them to me. I also have a special ham here waiting for you to trade for it." Wang Lu smiled again. "All right, with your words, I will also bring you Scholar Huang's underwear." Xiaofang's nostrils flared. "Ha! If you can bring me Scholar Huang's underwear, I will even return my body to you." "No need for the body." Wang Lu tactfully declined, and then laboriously carried the meat jar to the other side. This time Wang Lu did not go too far before he knocked on the door of a house. Using the same method, Wang Lu used a stall of steamed pork with rice flour to exchange for a bolt of fine silk, and then used the silk to exchange for a few boxes of cosmetic powder, and then used the cosmetic powder to exchange for snacks. Some of these exchanges were profitable and some were losers. Wang Lu did not care at all. He just repeated this set of actions like a puppet, knocking on the door, cupping his hands, handing over the item in his hands and asking for another item. Then, under the grateful gazes of the people, he went to the next place. In one day Wang Lu went around the village non-stop, knocking on 120 doors, sending warmth to 120 people. Finally, he leisurely returned home with a box of food from the Peach Garden Hotel. On this day, more than 10 people stopped what they were doing and focused on walking around with Wang Lu. In the morning, they were still a little puzzled, not understanding what was the point of Wang Lu's stroll. But by noon, even the slowest person was shocked. After living in the Peach Blossom Village for a month, everyone knew that favorability was a keyword created by Wang Lu and promoted by Hai Yunfan and the others. Every villager had a favorability, and favorability was the completion rate of the trial taker's quest. Wang Lu bartered for the whole morning. From a businessman's point of view, it was a huge loss. But from a trial taker's point of view, he explained to everyone a word. What was awesome? The trial taker's only task in the Peach Blossom Village was to increase favorability, and Wang Lu did it to the extreme. Except for the necessary lines, he didn't say anything else. Many times, his conversations with the villagers even went against the normal logic, but he was able to continue smoothly, and in the end, everyone was happy. There was only one explanation for this. Wang Lu had grasped the logic of the quest. He knew how to increase favorability for each quest, and used the simplest way to increase the highest favorability. What was even more amazing was that he had connected the 120 quests into a chain, and completed them all in one go. For the whole day, 120 people, everyone was grateful to Wang Lu. Were it not for the fact that all of their exclusive quests had been triggered, no one doubted that Wang Lu could absolutely trigger 120 exclusive quests. In terms of individual favorability, it might not necessarily be more than that of the village's specialized challengers, but when it was 120 times stacked, it was quite terrifying. Currently, the most generous trial taker only had a dozen or so quests in his hands at the same time. But when dealing with so many villagers, he would more or less be flustered. But what about Wang Lu? In one go, there were 120 people and not a single one was left out. The onlookers summed up his route, and found that he almost didn't even take a detour. What was even more terrifying was that his method of increasing favorability could be repeated infinitely, which was equivalent to perfectly controlling 120 quest lines. This was a realm that ordinary people couldn't understand. Even people would go crazy if they had to wash their hands 120 times in a day, let alone 120 quests. But Wang Lu was able to do it. But what's the point of this? A trial taker used a mocking smile to hide the jealousy in his heart. If he had made his move a month earlier, then everyone would have been pushed down the immortal path by him. They wouldn't even be able to get a single quest and would be trapped here forever. But now he's the one trapped here. Even if he could increase favorability for 120 people in one go, what's the point? Right now no one can give him quests. Although these words were not polite, they also said what many people were thinking. Wang Lu, you're indeed awesome, but don't you think that you're just an idiot? Of course Wang Lu didn't think so. Early the next morning when Wang Lu went out, he happened to meet a few pale-faced youths who came to provoke him. Wang Lu, you've worked so hard to increase favorability, it's a pity that. Before he could finish, Wang Lu interrupted him. I know what you want to say. To be honest, I really didn't expect you to be so stupid. Did you really think that the 120 people were the entire Peach Blossom Village? These words stunned the pale-faced youths, and they quickly counted the number of villagers with their fingers. No one was left out, right? One of the youths hesitated and said, unless you count the child in Mother Zhang's belly, there are only 120 people in the village. Someone else thought, or do the pigs and dogs in the village also have quests? But halfway through the discussion, they were interrupted by Wang Lu. You idiots are really the product of inbreeding, aren't you? Although they were not familiar with the terminology, the youths could tell that this was an extremely vicious insult. Blood rushed to their faces. What did you say? As they scolded, they wanted to rush forward and fight to the death. Wang Lu raised his head and crossed his arms over his chest. He looked at the youths as if they were wild dogs mating in the village. But the moment the youths punched out, a black shadow fell from the sky. Hit. Chapter 17. As expected of Although they were beaten to a pulp, the young masters knew what Wang Lu was planning to do. Indeed, the 120 people were not the entire Peach Blossom Village. Indeed, they were so stupid that they forgot about such an obvious person. The mysterious shadow, the Peach Blossom Village's security guardian, Ajaja could be said to be the most mysterious person in the village. No matter who in the village mentioned him, the other party would very naturally have a confused expression that said, "What are you talking about?" They would forcefully change the topic and shut their mouths. He appeared and disappeared like a ghost dozens of times so far. Every time he appeared, he would just in time to stop the violent bloodshed, but he seemed to be indifferent to verbal violence, which allowed Wang Lu to take advantage of him. Moreover, he was very skilled. Even if the contestants had magical weapons, they would not be able to withstand his punches and kicks. The most exaggerated time was when Xie Qianlong and the others, who had already given up on themselves, specially set up a trap to lure him to come. They first activated their magical weapons, and when the shadow appeared, they immediately activated them. As a result, the shadow broke the ice storm and flowing cloud formless sword with his bare hands, and beat the three young masters black and blue. After that, no one thought that the shadow was from the Peach Blossom Village, because in a peaceful little village, how could there be an expert who could fight with magical weapons with bare hands? Obviously, he was a senior disciple from the Lingjian school who was sent here to monitor the village. How could a senior disciple attack the village? But now it seemed, could it be? Sure enough, after the shadow appeared, it did not immediately disappear. Instead, it stopped in front of Wang Lu. This was also the first time that people saw the shadow's true appearance. Well, it was better not to see it. It was indeed a shadow. It barely had the silhouette of a person, but the details were all hidden in the black fog. This appearance indeed did not look like a senior disciple from the Lingjian school, but more like an old demon from a cult. Wang Lu was not afraid. With an expression of "I have been waiting for you for a long time," he said, "Hero, come and teach me Kung Fu. My bones are clear and my aptitude is outstanding. I will definitely be able to shoulder the heavy responsibility of maintaining world peace." The Black Shadow didn't seem to expect Wang Lu's opening remarks to be so direct. He paused for a moment and said stiffly, "It's good that you help people in the village and make friends, but if you want to learn my Kung Fu, it's not enough." With that, he disappeared with a whoosh. However, Wang Lu had already obtained what he wanted. When he said that it wasn't enough, he was obviously referring to the lack of favorability. Although he had painstakingly worked for a month and finally designed a perfect one-wave rush strategy, he had only practiced it for a day after all. The accumulation of favorability was limited. But with the perfect wave rush, it wouldn't take too long to start from 0 to max. Those short-sighted trial takers thought that those Peach Blossom villagers who monopolized the quest were worthless. They were really stupid. Indeed, after losing the quest, it was impossible for the villager to help the trial taker leave the Peach Blossom village. But on the contrary, his strategy would become very rigid and monotonous. Just like what Wang Lu did yesterday, he could obtain a large amount of favorability by simply bartering. Moreover, he could try it repeatedly and infinitely. And the accumulation of these favorability points would greatly affect the trial taker's overall evaluation. Right now, the trial takers who stayed in the Peach Blossom village had basically all obtained a ticket to leave. Now they were here to further improve their evaluation. However, they didn't use the simplest method and insisted on monopolizing the quest. In Wang Lu's eyes, this was proof of inbreeding. As for Wang Lu, his goal was different from the others from the very beginning. If it was a competition in other fields, Wang Lu didn't have the confidence to win against these rich elites of the 9 provinces. But this immortal path, it was as if it was tailor-made for him. Every stage was so meticulously designed. So if he wanted to do it, he would do it to the best of his abilities. With a clear goal in mind, what Wang Lu needed to do next was to keep repeating the perfect wave rush until the next step of the quest was triggered by the Black Shadow. This repetition lasted for half a month. In the past half a month, more and more trial takers had chosen to leave. One reason was that they had done almost everything they could in the Peach Blossom village. The more they did, the better the results would be. For example, a certain prince who liked his elder sister was brutally defeated by a village girl. The Peach Blossom village was a test of one's EQ. This was indeed reflected in the fact that most of the trial takers who were able to persist until now were tactful people. However, each of them had their own limits. There were always some people in the village that they couldn't please. On the other hand, watching helplessly as Wang Lu easily pleased everyone was not a small blow. With poor psychological endurance, it was easy for them to retaliate against the society, and ultimately harm others and themselves. Half a month later, except for those who were destined to live alone in the village for the rest of their lives, most of the trial takers had already left. Even the clumsy Wen Bao, who had taken the A-level quest and received Hai Yunfan's help, had almost failed the quest, had accumulated enough completion points and happily left the Peach Blossom village with Auntie Lu. The only ones left in the village were those who had no hope of ascending to immortality and Wang Lu. Perhaps it was because Wang Lu had stayed in the village for too long, or perhaps those who were sensible had already reached the next stage, but rumors against Wang Lu began to gradually spread in the Peach Blossom village. Or perhaps it was mockery. Wasn't it great to be the first in the cloud wave map? Was it great to win the village head's favor and monopolize the village head's backyard? Was it a sense of accomplishment to personally guide Hai Yun Fan to be the first to leave the Peach Blossom Village? Was it invincible to increase the favorability of 120 people in one go? And now you're stuck here with us losers. You're very unwilling, aren't you? Self-righteous, letting 120 opportunities slip away in front of your eyes, vainly trying to catch that non-existent hidden quest. In the end, you fell into a trap of your own making. Your bright future was ruined by your own hands, and your path to immortality was severed. Apart from being able to live in the village head's backyard until the end of the trial, what's the difference between you and us? In the face of these malicious remarks, Wang Lu did not pretend to be some kind of otherworldly expert. Instead, he ran to the village square in a very high-profile manner and passionately fought against the rumors. Wang Lu's way of fighting was very direct. "Idiot, your mother was ked by a dog." This short sentence silenced the entire Peach Blossom village for a long time. Dozens of shocked eyes stared at him. It was hard to imagine that Wang Lu, who always pretended to be an expert, could actually scold people in such a nasty way. However, in Wang Lu's view, the essence of cursing in the street was nothing more than this. In addition to the acerbic, sharp, and straight to the point of sarcasm, it was also the most lethal part of cursing that involved relatives. Moreover, it was suitable for both young and old, and its scope of application was very wide, and the enraging effect was first class. Sure enough, those young masters who usually boasted of themselves as nobles all flew into a rage out of humiliation. "Wang Lu, you're courting death. Bastard, don't think that we're afraid of you just because you have some tricks up your sleeve. I'm going to make you beg for death, but you can't." For a moment, the remaining 10 or so people in the village unanimously launched a crusade, especially a certain young master with the surname Xia. In this regard, Wang Lu just sneered, "You're not convinced? If you're not convinced, then come and prove it to me. If you bastards have the ability to defy the heavens, then come and try to touch me, bastard." Under such provocation, someone finally lost his self-control and threw his fists at Wang Lu. Then, a black shadow descended from the sky. A hit. After waiting for the crowd to attack, Wang Lu smiled and said to the black shadow, "I've been waiting for you for a long time." This time, the black shadow was not in a good mood. "Your mouth is indeed crooked. I'm not here to be your bodyguard." Wang Lu nodded, "I know you're here to teach me martial arts. I've already maxed out the favorability of 120 people." Speaking of this, Wang Lu could not help but sigh. As early as when he entered the Peach Blossom Village, he had suspected that there would be a hidden quest, because he always felt that he had a tacit understanding with the designer. If he did it himself, it would definitely be a hidden quest. But he did not expect that this quest would be so troublesome. He actually had to max out the favorability of 120 people to trigger the next step. Thinking about it, if he had not been the first to walk out of the cloud wave map, had not been able to stay in the village chief's house, and had been able to safely deduce the entire map, and had the village chief as his source of information, he would not have been able to find the one-wave rush strategy no matter what. And without the one-wave rush, even the most skilled social butterfly would not be able to please 120 people at the same time. This was extremely difficult. However, the more difficult it was, the higher the reward. Wang Lu was very curious as to what kind of reward this hidden quest would give. However, "I've seen your ability to be kind to others," the Black Shadow said as he looked down at the crowd of trial takers, "but that's not enough." Wang Lu frowned, "Not enough. If you want to learn martial arts, you need to pay for it." "Tuition?" The Black Shadow laughed, "My requirements are not high, I only need 1 copper coin." Wang Lu laughed, "Your tuition is really artistic. Isn't 1 copper coin easy? I'll give it to you now." In the Ru family inn in the Spirit Creek town, Wang Lu had spent almost all of his money, but he still had some scattered silver and copper coins. However, when he took out the money bag, the Black Shadow shook his head. "What's the use of money from outside? I only want the money from the mountain." Wang Lu's expression suddenly sank. Money from the mountain? Where did the money from the mountain come from? The Peach Blossom Village was peaceful and comfortable, but the currency system was so primitive that it made people want to cry. Not to mention gold and silver coins, there was not even a single shell. The most popular way was to barter. Wang Lu stood there stunned. The Black Shadow did not hurry to leave, it just quietly waited for him to think. Money from the mountain. This mountain was obviously the Spirit Sword Mountain. The Lingjian school on the Spirit Sword Mountain had its own currency system, but that was too far away from him. Other than that, where else could there be money on the Spirit Sword Mountain? Wait a minute, that means? As an adventurer who specialized in strategy, Wang Lu's nerves suddenly trembled, and a light flashed in his mind. He opened the money bag and picked up a coin from the pile of 10 or so copper coins. That copper coin was the change given to him by the lady boss of the Rue family inn in the Spirit Creek town. Since it came from the Spirit Creek town, it should be the money from the mountain, right? Sure enough, when the Black Shadow saw the copper coin, it stretched out its hand. Wang Lu carefully gazed at the movement of the shadow. Strangely enough, this shadow's punches and kicks were as fast as lightning. Even the magical treasures were shattered under its punches and kicks. However, at this time, its movement was a bit slower than ordinary people. Strange, very strange. In his mind, the adventurer's light kept flashing, but he could not see the real shadow. Wang Lu frowned. His fingers, which were holding the copper coin, turned white because of excessive force. The next moment he seemed to hear the Black Shadow sigh, so he made a prompt decision. Wang Lu took back the copper coin. The Black Shadow was stunned. What? I'm sorry, this copper coin is a relic left by my dead wife. It has a very important meaning to me. The Black Shadow froze for a moment, and then uttered an unknown murmur. The next moment, a fist silently came flying towards him. Dead wife, my ass. Chapter 18. As the old saying goes, a single coin stumps a hero. Wang Lu laughed at himself. As a self-proclaimed professional adventurer, he was really stumped by a single coin. His decision to withdraw his hand was mostly due to his intuition, but Wang Lu did not regret it, because he felt that he had made the right bet. What was the value of the lady boss's copper coins? Wang Lu did not know, but its value should not be limited to the Peach Blossom Village, right? To be honest, before the shadow mentioned a single coin, Wang Lu had only regarded the copper coins as ordinary copper coins. However, this almost mandatory tuition fee aroused his vigilance. In games, no, in many adventures there was such a setting. If the items obtained at the beginning of the adventure could be kept until the end, they would often have an incredible effect. This copper coin seemed to be such a magical item. If he used it in the middle of the adventure, he would definitely regret it at the end of the adventure. The more Wang Lu thought about it, the more he felt that his conjecture was correct. However, the next problem was that he had to get past the difficulty of a single coin. Where could he find another coin? Of course, this problem was simple. He just needed to find the village head. His favorability towards him had already been maxed out, so there was nothing difficult to ask. Money? However, when the village head heard Wang Lu's request, his brows wrinkled even deeper than the sea. If you want anything else, that would be easy, but this money? I've never seen it before. If there is an exchange in the village, it is usually barter. There has never been an item of equivalent value like you mentioned. Wang Lu clicked his tongue, thinking that this piece of trash was really unreliable. So it was better to rely on himself. Village head, it doesn't matter if we don't have money. If we don't have it, we can just invent it. The village head was confused. Wang Lu explained, although there are not many people in the Peach Blossom Village, it is rich in resources and transactions are frequent. If we don't have an equivalent value, it will be very inconvenient. How about we use your credit as a guarantee and issue a set of currency for everyone to use? The village head was stunned. Issue currency? That's right. Use shells, precious metals, and the like. If you think it's too troublesome, you can just use paper as a guarantee. Once there was a monetary system, the village's resource allocation would be more efficient, and the productivity would be greatly improved. The quality of life of the people would also reach a new level. As for me, who single-handedly created this economic miracle, you only need to give me a copper coin. The more Wang Lu spoke, the more excited he became. He thought to himself, sure enough, this stupid mission still needs to be solved in this stupid way. God knows where the mission's copper coin is hidden. I'm too lazy to guess or look for it. I'll do it myself. Unexpectedly, even though Wang Lu talked non-stop for a long time, the village chief shook his head after a long silence. No. Wang Lu almost jumped up. No. Do you know what you're saying? The village chief continued to shake his head. The issue of currency is not feasible. F***ck, why can't it work? Could it be that everything I said just now was fed to the dogs? Don't worry, we can start again. Wang Lu showed amazing patience. Young Master Wang, I understand what you're saying. The village chief sighed. But this matter is indeed out of the question. Give me a reason first. This question seemed to stump the village chief. After a long time, the village chief said hesitantly, the ancestral law cannot be changed. The ancestral law cannot be changed? Are you constipated? Wang Lu was so angry that he jumped 3 feet high. You have the nerve to say such a stupid reason? Did the data overflow because of me farming favorability? The village chief said again, I know it's very good, but I don't like it. F***ck, you're an old man in your 50s or 60s. Aren't you afraid of losing your life or having a heart attack by acting cute? It was unknown whether the village chief would have a heart attack, but Wang Lu was about to have one. As an adventurer who had a tacit understanding with the level designer, he had an overwhelming advantage on the immortal path. However, at this time the designer's idea suddenly deviated from his, which was very painful. What was more painful was that the designer was playing a hooligan. The village chief usually had a normal level of intelligence, but now he couldn't even speak human language. It was as if he had been poisoned by Auntie Lu and Madame He Lu. If there was no trick in this, well, let's not beat around the bush. What do you want? Just say it. The village chief looked confused. What do you want? Wang Lu frowned and kept silent for a long time. His eyes swept over the village chief, which made the old man uncomfortable. Forget it. Just pretend that I never came today. At the same time above the clouds. I don't think it's a good idea to do this. A black shadow hesitantly observed the changes in the clouds above the peach garden. The conversation between Wang Lu and the village chief could be clearly seen here. On the other side, a woman in white sneered, for this kind of cheater, it's already merciful of him not to ban him. The black shadow couldn't stand it anymore. You have the nerve to say that he cheated? It was obviously the flaw in the design of your peach garden village that was found by him. The woman in white said awkwardly, what flaw? Little Ling Air, if you don't understand, don't talk nonsense. Can an elder's flaw even be called a flaw? The black shadow just sneered. He changed the immortal path without permission, patted his chest in front of the elder and said that this level was no less rigorous and exquisite than the cloud wave map in the Netherworld path, which had been passed down for thousands of years. When there was a problem, he secretly came and forcibly interfered with the process. Hey, little Ling Air, why are you so protective of him? Have you forgotten our sisterhood for so many years? He helped me win that bet, so of course I have to speak up for him. Also, I say if you can't afford to play, then don't play. As a dignified elder of the Heavenly Sword Hall, you don't even have this little bit of responsibility? The woman in white suddenly became angry out of shame. Heavenly Sword Hall? Ha, that idiot sect leader still hasn't given me a subsidy for the Heavenly Sword Hall. Why should I have the responsibility of the Heavenly Sword Hall? I'm just being shameless. When you give me a bonus, then I will become a righteous master. Although the Lingjian school is big, you are probably the only one who can say such words. Facing the woman in white's shamelessness, the black shadow couldn't help but admire her. While they were talking, the woman in white had already commanded the village chief to force Wang Lu away. She clapped her hands and laughed. I want to see what other tricks you have this time. Then an old man's cold voice sounded behind her. I want to see how you are going to explain this to the disciplinary elder. The woman in white's smile instantly froze. When she turned around while trembling, her smile became extremely forced. Hey, isn't this sect leader's senior martial brother? Honored guest, I'm sorry for not welcoming you earlier. I'm really? Honored guest, my ass. This is my home. Really? I thought it was my home. Recently, my sense of direction has been getting worse. Senior martial brother, do you want to give me tens of thousands of spirit stones to cure it? Before I cure your bad sense of direction, I'll first cure your audacity. Previously, you randomly changed the immortal path, and this time you took advantage of my absence to change the immortal path. TSK, don't even think about your salary this year. What the F***ck? Also, you said that as an elder of the Heavenly Sword Hall, you haven't received any subsidy. This is indeed not good. The woman in white's hope was rekindled. So you don't have to be an elder anymore. Just cultivate in your non-phase peak. When you reach the Yuanying stage, I will reopen the Heavenly Sword Hall. At that time, I will definitely give you the full subsidy. What the F***ck? Senior martial brother, I am wholeheartedly doing this for the good of the sect, and also for your sake. If you say this again, I will also deduct your basic pay. Senior martial brother, you can't distinguish right from wrong. You will definitely regret it later. After driving away the troublemaker woman in white, the supreme leader of the Lingjian school turned his head again, only to find that the black shadow had disappeared. The leader sighed. Knowing that there was nothing he could do, he turned his attention back to the immortal path. The immortal artifact that controlled the entire immortal path was messed up by the woman in white. However, when the leader reached out and touched it, the traces left by the woman in white disappeared. However, the leader pondered for a moment and added something to the immortal path. Although Junior Marshall's sister likes to cause trouble since there really is a loophole, it is indeed better to seal it. But, doesn't that copper coin look a bit familiar? Forget it, I'm not wearing my glasses so I won't look at it. On the other side, Wang Lu, whose sure-win method had been forcibly blocked, also realized that this method was not working. Although he despised the shameless method of the Lingjian school, if the opportunistic method was not working, Wang Lu would not hang himself for a long time. Then I will carefully think about the main method. If I want to get the money from the mountain, what else can I do? If I want to get the money, I must at least deposit the money first. Could it be that in this village there are some clues that I have missed? Damn it, obviously there is no clue. I am a professional. Wang Lu angrily slammed the table, showing his full confidence in his professional ability. He had prepared for a whole month in the Peach Blossom village. Although he did not leave the village, he had grasped all the details of the village. It was impossible for him to miss anything. Otherwise, he would not have been able to create the one-way flow strategy. But now, it was clear that he had reached the end of the road. If he could not find a way out of this, the immortal path would end here. Damn it, the money from the mountain, the money from the mountain. Where can I find the money from the mountain? This village has clearly been searched everywhere, could it be? Suddenly, a light flashed in Wang Lu's mind. Jiesuke, I actually forgot about that person. My professionalism is crying. After that, Wang Lu walked out of the courtyard with a self-deprecating smile, just in time to see two losers passing by. What a coincidence, hey, you two are close relatives. Before he finished speaking, a black shadow descended from the sky, grabbed Wang Lu and rushed back into the house like the wind. I say, that's enough. Don't deliberately provoke others with obscenities every time you meet me. Wang Lu said, who told the Peach Blossom Village's quest designed to be flawed? I didn't want it to be like this. The black shadow nodded in agreement. So, this time you came to find me, did you think it through? Wang Lu smiled. You can say that I have thought it through. I have already found the money from the mountain. Oh. Humph, at first I did make a mistake. I thought that the money from the mountain could only be found in the Peach Blossom Village. Later I realized that I was really stupid. Obviously, the key to the hidden quest is you, an outsider, but I didn't think of such a simple truth. Even if the Peach Blossom Village does not have the concept of money, you who asked me for tuition definitely do. The black shadow also smiled. That is indeed the truth. So, my mission is to get that copper coin from you. That's a good idea. But this copper coin is not easy to get. Even if you take out 10,000 taels of silver, I will not exchange it with you. Don't worry, even if I sell my kidney, I can't take out 10,000 taels of silver, but, as Wang Lu said this, he smiled again and then took out something from under the bed. It was a delicate mahogany food box. Seeing the food box, the black shadow seemed to be extremely surprised. Seeing this scene, Wang Lu's confidence went from 80% to 100%. He had finally passed this test. Of course, this food box was not an ordinary food box. Although the workmanship was excellent and the materials were exquisite, a single food box, even if it was an antique from the previous dynasty, would not be able to sell for 10,000 taels of silver, let alone a copper coin from the Spirit Sword Mountain. In fact, a copper coin from the Spirit Sword Mountain was priceless. Let alone the gold and silver of the mortal world. Even if the young master of an immortal cultivation family like Xie Qianlong took out his personal magical treasure, would the black shadow give him a copper coin? Obviously not. Thinking of this, Wang Lu quickly realized that perhaps only the things in the mountain could be exchanged for money, and it couldn't be ordinary things because ordinary things were not worth much here. And this food box happened to be an unusual thing. Speaking of which, its effect was not that amazing. No matter how much time passed, the appearance, smell and taste of the food in it would not change much. In the end, it was just a super fresh-keeping box. It could not be compared to some young master's storm talismans, nor could it be worth 10,000 taels of silver. Even after Wang Lu had eaten all the food in it, this food box would no longer have any practical value. However, in the Peach Blossom Village, this food box was the key to pass the test. When the lady boss gave him this food box, he didn't realize the mystery behind it. However, later on, he realized that the lady boss's hint was simply too obvious. A box of food had to last for a week. If it didn't have a fresh-keeping function, would he have to eat the mold as a side dish? Not to mention that after completing the chain of quests and helping the lady boss earn a lot of money, the lady boss had not given him anything ordinary. That teasing one copper coin seemed to be related to the entire Immortal Path's hidden quest. So how could the food box be just an ordinary food box? Casually patting the unusual food box, Wang Lu smiled and said, "I'll sell this to you cheaply. A good price of 1 copper coin. You won't refuse me, right?" The black shadow was silent for a long time. Because its body was hidden in the black fog, it was impossible to see its expression. After a while, the black shadow said, "I didn't expect you to really find it. This food box. I'll accept it." Since he had accepted it, Wang Lu had passed this hurdle. At this point, this self-proclaimed professional adventurer couldn't help but laugh. The black shadow also laughed. "I'm just curious. Did you expect this from the beginning?" "Of course not. I'm just a professional adventurer, not a cheat. I didn't read the guide beforehand. Who would have thought that this food box also hid a secret? I finished the food inside in 2 or 3 days, and then I spent the remaining days lying in bed and starving." The black shadow asked, "Oh? Since you didn't discover the secret of this food box, why did you bring it so far?" "Because every qualified professional adventurer is a squirrel." Chapter 19. When he left the Peach Blossom Village, Wang Lu was the only one left in the village. He was truly a loner. Walking out of the village chief's backyard and looking at the empty village, Wang Lu fell into deep thought. After pondering for a while, someone patted him on the back. The black shadow laughed. "What are you thinking about? The deadline for the Peach Blossom Village mission has already arrived. Those who can't pass have already been kicked out. It's impossible for the Lingjian school to support them for a lifetime. Since the mission is over, there's no need for the others to continue to exist. Maintaining the array also costs money." Facing Wang Lu's surprised gaze, the black shadow casually explained. "You're pretty lucky. You barely made it to the deadline. If you were a stick of incense later, I would have to kick you out." Wang Lu curiously asked, "Are you a senior from the Lingjian school?" The black shadow did not answer and continued, "You've passed the Peach Blossom Village mission. As your witness, I will take you to the next mission. Come with me." After saying that, the black shadow quickly walked out of the village. Wang Lu quickly followed. As for the luggage and snacks in the house, he did not have time to care about them. The black shadow was far ahead of them. His pace seemed slow, but it was actually very fast. Not long after, it left the village and went deep into a mountain range. Before the Peach Blossom Village mission ended, this mountain range was an unsolvable maze. No matter how they walked, they would eventually return to the Peach Blossom Village. However, after walking for a while, the black shadow saw a glimmer of hope. Wang Lu desperately followed behind. Not long after, he was out of breath. Although there were countless questions hidden in his heart, he could not say anything. The black shadow seemed to be doing this on purpose. While dragging Wang Lu, it said, "After the Peach Blossom Village mission is over, the rewards will be given based on the completion of the mission. You seem to have already guessed this, so I won't say much. However, when you choose the rewards later, remember to put more thought into it. The later tests are not so easy. The Lingjian school has not recruited qualified talents through the Immortal Gathering for hundreds of years." Speaking up to here, the black shadow suddenly stopped, turned around and smiled, "Good luck. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the mountain." After saying that, the black shadow disappeared with a whoosh. Behind the black shadow, a narrow gap appeared in the mountain wall. Wang Lu measured himself in front of the gap. Fortunately, he had a medium build and did not have time to eat before setting off, so he could barely squeeze in. The gap was narrow at the front and wide at the back. Not long after, it suddenly opened up, revealing a spacious cave. The cave was hidden deep in the mountain. A gap above the cave cast mottled sunlight, illuminating the situation inside. With the help of the sunlight, Wang Lu looked around the cave several times before he shook his head with a smile. Compared to the Peach Blossom Village's flawed but sincere design, this cave was quite lacking. In the middle of the cave, there was a wooden box with a blank sign next to it. Presumably, this was the reward of the Peach Blossom Village's quest. Wang Lu used the one-wave rush strategy to conquer the almost impossible hidden quest. In theory, the level of the reward should be heaven-defying. Although this wooden box looked shabby, the level of the treasure inside should be unquestionable, unless the Lingjian school was completely shameless and used some **T like data overflow as an excuse to cheat. Just as he was thinking, the blank sign suddenly had more words appear. Quest status stats, number of conquerors, 120, total number of favorable impression points, 12,000. Average favorability points, 100, key quest, you can't complete series, quest completion rate, 100, overall score. The last number, because of the limited area of the wooden sign, was too small and crowded to be seen clearly. But thinking about it, it was still an astronomical number. The clearing of the Peach Blossom Village should be done according to the rules set by the designer, but the designer probably didn't expect that there would be a troublemaker like Wang Luke. Anyway, it was really good that there was no data overflow. After the overall score was given, the wooden sign sank into the ground with a whooshed sound. The wooden box next to it brewed for a while. From time to time, it would gently shake twice, making a fanciful sound. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the wooden box opened by itself. The things inside gushed out like a geyser, dazzling everyone's eyes for a moment. Above the clouds, a certain disciple in black and white who had been caught to watch the changes in the clouds could no longer bear the loneliness and stretched his body. Sigh, this immortal gathering is probably going to be a waste. Next to him, a disciple in black and white who looked much younger asked curiously, "Senior, why do you say that? I see that the progress of the few at the top of the ranking is not bad." The older disciple in black and white sneered, "What do you mean by not bad? We already wasted so much time on the second last monster. As for the last monster, I think that except for that Hai Yun fan, there is still a little bit of hope. The others should not even think about it." The young man in black and white was even more surprised. "I remember that the strongest monsters in the Red Ridge Mountain, Frozen Wind Valley, Clear Sky Peak, and Netherworld Path are only class 1, 6th or 7th stage. They are not easy to deal with for mortals, but they shouldn't be a problem for them. After all, they were all rewarded by the Peach Blossom Village and some of them have amazing talent." The older disciple patted his junior brother's shoulder and said, "Junior brother, you're still too young. Our sect's immortal path hasn't been completed for hundreds of years. Do you think that those few rank 1/6 or rank 7 monsters on the mountain path can achieve such a shocking record that will make other sects laugh at them? So far you and I, as well as the other disciples, were all taken in by our masters and martial uncles when they were traveling the world. To be honest, although junior brother's aptitude and temperament can be said to be first-rate, even surpassing senior brothers, if you were to walk this path once, you wouldn't be able to reach the end." The junior was obviously not convinced, but he did not say anything. The senior patted him on the shoulder again. "Haha, if you don't believe me, then continue to look. Look, that guy called Hai Yun Fan seems to be not far from the last level." Hai Yun Fan, who was walking on the Netherworld path, was indeed not far from the end. It had been more than 2 weeks since he left the Peach Blossom Village, and he was finally about to pass through the Frozen Wind Valley path. However, as the saying goes, the closer one gets to the destination, not only did Hai Yun Fan not relax, but he was even more careful. Because he knew very well what was waiting for him at the end. For hundreds of years, no one in the Lingjian school had been able to pass through the immortal path. How could he easily reach the end? He was not a natural genius like Wang Lu, so Hai Yun Fan was very clear about his own strength. 3rd stage talent, 2nd stage temperament, 1st stage comprehension, and the ability to weigh the pros and cons, these were the only strengths that Hai Yun Fan could rely on. Previously, when he left the Peach Blossom Village early, it was also because of the word weigh the pros and cons. Leaving too early would indeed cause a loss in the completion rate of the quest, but the first to leave was likely to get an extra reward. After weighing the pros and cons, Hai Yun Fan made a decision. And at the beginning of the Frozen Wind Valley path, he realized that he had bet on the right treasure. The reward was very simple. During the trial of the immortal path, he would have unlimited physical strength, and he would also get a 7th stage magic tool, the Little Grass Man, which could greatly weaken the enemy and could only be used 3 times. However, the Frozen Wind Valley path was really difficult. Not only did it have a natural rejection towards those who did not have enough talent like the Golden Bridge, but illusions were everywhere, just like the Cloud Wave map, which was good at confusing people. The trial taker could encounter all kinds of situations. Some of them needed to be tactful and avoid, while others needed to be brave. This was a comprehensive test for the trial taker. No matter how heaven-defying a genius you were, if you did not have any of these qualities, you might be stopped halfway. And among these qualities, the most important one happened to be the ability to weigh the pros and cons and make judgments. When it was time to advance, he would not advance. When it was time to retreat, he would not retreat. He could only display 40 to 50% of his ability, which was not feasible on the immortal path. Fortunately, Hai Yun Fan was good at weighing and judging, coupled with a bit of luck. More than 10 difficulties in the Icewind Valley, which could be called a natural moat, were overcome by him one by one. He did not even need to use the black magic grass man. Of course, this was also intentional. In the previous several dangerous encounters, and even when he was almost cornered by a passing monster, the little grass man was always at the bottom of the box. Because if he wanted to pass the last test, he had to save the precious resources. Other people did not know, but Hai Yunfan knew that whether it was the Frozen Wind Valley or the Red Ridge Mountain, in the end, a powerful monster would be arranged to guard them. How powerful would that monster be? So powerful that no one had been able to handle it for hundreds of years. Fortunately, the Lingjian school had arranged for a peach blossom village in the immortal path this time. Through the quest rewards, the trial taker's strength could be strengthened. For example, if the little grass man could be weakened 3 times, it might be able to pass the test. Thinking about this, Hai Yunfan walked into the last canyon of the Frozen Wind Valley. The canyon road was long and winding, but Hai Yunfan was patient and tense all the way until he turned a corner and finally saw the monster guarding the pass. Looking at the scene in front of him, Hai Yunfan frowned and fell into deep thought. Strange, what kind of monster was this Tenjiang-long icicle-covered big guy that looked like a southern barbarian elephant? He could be considered to be knowledgeable. He had read the records of the gremlins of the Tsang River that had been passed down in the immortal cultivation world several times. He had already memorized the first and second level gremlins introduced in it by heart. However, at this time he did not remember seeing this species. To be honest, I have always suspected that the ancestors of our sect made a mistake. Above the clouds, the old man in black and white carefully spread the gossip. The young junior brother curiously asked, "What mistake?" I suspect that when they designed the immortal path, they accidentally wrote the wrong words in the rules of the last test. The monster guarding the pass should have been a second-level 9th rank monster, but in the end, it was written as a third-level 9th rank monster. It's a difference of 1 word, no, it's a difference of 1 line. Hearing the words third-level 9th rank monster, the junior brother could not help but exclaim, "A third-level monster? Even if it's only a 9th rank monster, isn't it close to the foundation establishment stage?" The senior brother very seriously corrected him, "That's for ordinary foundation establishment stage cultivators. If it was our Lingjian school, a first or second level qi refining stage cultivator would be enough to deal with a third level monster." The junior brother somewhat weakly said, "That still requires a first or second level qi refining stage cultivation. How do you expect a group of people who have not even started cultivating to deal with it? Even if they have a family magic weapon, I'm afraid it will be difficult." The senior brother very irresponsibly spread his hands. "Who knows, that's why no one has been able to pass for hundreds of years. A third-level monster, TSK, a difference of 1 level, I'm afraid the difficulty is 10 times higher. Moreover, a third-level 9th rank monster is only the bottom line, it's not strange to encounter a 7th or 8th rank monster. This time Hai Yunfan was lucky and happened to encounter a 9th rank monster. That's why I said, except for that Hai Yunfan, the others can forget about it." As they were talking, there were waves in the clouds again. The senior brother glanced at it and immediately beamed with joy. "Oh, it's starting." The junior brother hurriedly went over. "Ah, such a decisive reaction, directly using the black magic scarecrow. 3 times in a row." The senior brother nodded, "It's a very good choice. Although it's only a 7th rank magic tool, theoretically it's only effective against second level monsters and below. But if it's only a third level 9th rank monster, using it 3 times in a row can indeed cause it to drop in level." The junior brother was somewhat worried, but even if it drops in level, it's still a second-level 1st or 2nd rank monster. "I'm afraid that hundreds of ordinary elite soldiers won't be able to do anything to it," the senior brother said. "Don't worry, this person called Hai Yunfan must have hidden a trump card." The junior brother continued to worry, even if he hid a magic weapon, it would be useless. For people who have not cultivated, the higher the grade of the weapon, the more difficult it is to display its effect. For example, those people who stole magic weapons, a 6th or 7th rank magic weapon is not even as good as a 9th rank magic tool, it's really hard to laugh at them. The senior brother was very approving. Yes, it's simply a disgrace to us cultivators. But this Hai Yunfan is not on the same level as those good-for-nothings. Let's continue watching. Hai Yunfan was indeed not on the same level as Xie Qianlong and the others. Because Xie Qianlong and the others at least had a trump card given by their families, but he really didn't. The Grand Cloud Imperial family status was illustrious, but it was only in the mortal world. It was true that the Grand Cloud Imperial family had a good relationship with many cultivation sects, but it was not so good that they could use mortal resources to exchange for immortal magic tools. All magic tools could be exchanged at will, but magic treasures were really difficult to exchange. Of course, in the 1,000-year empire, magic treasures could always be found, but what could people who had not cultivated use magic treasures? Except for the legendary top-grade magic treasures that were comparable to immortal tools, magic treasures were not as practical as magic tools for ordinary people, but magic tools could not be brought into the mountain. Hai Yunfan was not a cheater like Wang Lu, who could not find loopholes in the path of immortal ascension. Along the way he did not rely on trump cards or cheating, he only relied on continuous efforts. But would continuous efforts create miracles? Hai Yunfan sincerely hoped so. Because if there were no miracles, then he would definitely be finished. Hai Yunfan was not a cultivator, so he could not accurately measure the level of monsters, but after using the little grass doll 3 times, the giant beast in front of him had only shrunk from a height of 10 feet to a height of 20 feet. In this case he would probably evolve from a ground of minced meat to a ground of minced meat. On the path of immortal ascension, life and death were not considered. Against such a big monster, even if he had 100 lives, it would not be enough. But Hai Yunfan still took out his family's treasure sword and pointed it at his opponent bravely. Chapter 20. The Lingjian School's Misty Peak had a good tradition. Watching the fun never boils down. At first, the 2 black and white martial brothers who were watching from the clouds were too bored, so they casually ridiculed the performance of the people on the immortal path. However, as Hai Yunfan took the lead to enter the last stage and started a fierce battle with the level 3 9th rank monster, it didn't take long for dozens of black and white martial brothers to gather and comment on the situation. Hey, this young master's speed is quite fast. It only took him 10 days to reach the last level? What's the use of being fast? No one has passed this immortal path for hundreds of years. The faster he goes, the closer he is to failure. The last level seems to be a level 3 9th rank monster. Hey, isn't that the Western continent's mammoth elephant? Who gave it to him? This big guy is one of the most overbearing monsters of the same level. A level 3 9th rank monster is comparable to a level 7 or 8 monster. How can we fight it? That's hard to say. After 3 times of black magic, the mammoth's cultivation has been reduced by 30%, and its level has dropped. What's the use? Let the sect leader lower his level to fight you. Do you have a chance of winning? Don't argue with me. Look, Hai Yunfan is moving. Oh, he actually used that toothpick-like sword in his hand to cut the thick skin and thick flesh of the mammoth. His courage is commendable, really commendable. Yeah, he knows he's going to die but still wants to wield his sword. This kind of sword awareness is admirable. Ah, it seems to be sent flying. Oh, it seems like it's going to fall off the cliff. Seems like it really fell? No way? Let's wait and see. Maybe it will fly up and make a comeback. It's been so long but there's no movement at all. He's lying motionless in the snow. What's going on? Where's the trump card? Where's the big comeback? He's not going to die, right? Isn't this guy highly valued by the several martial uncles? A few days ago, Master even praised him in front of us as the most promising genius to pass the immortal path. How could he die just like that? Master probably wants to use this to teach us that everything is possible on the immortal cultivation path and we must guard against arrogance and rashness. Sigh, in any case there's nothing to see. Everyone, let's disperse. Within a few minutes, the gathered crowd dispersed, leaving only the 2 brothers who were on duty to continue poking at the same spot. After a while, that junior brother was still in disbelief. Senior brother, that Hai Yunfan, is he really dead? Senior martial brother stared at the clouds and said hesitantly, I think he did it on purpose. The way he flew out just now was a little unnatural. Even though we were separated by the cloud formation, I'm not completely sure. But if you think about it from another perspective, if you meet an opponent that you can't win against, you might have a chance of survival by jumping off a cliff. Senior brother, he's moving. The junior brother was very surprised as he pointed at the cloud that was moving again. Of course Hai Yunfan didn't die. If he died, the soft cloud sword art that he had painstakingly practiced for the past few years would have been in vain. The Immortal Gathering didn't accept cultivators who had already embarked on the immortal cultivation path, and Hai Yunfan just happened to have practiced martial arts in the mortal world. His immortal cultivation aptitude was only at the 3rd grade, but his martial arts aptitude was first class. At the age of 12, he had already practiced the soft cloud sword art to 50 or 60% perfection. When he used the soft cloud sword art, one of the 3 divine weapons of the Grand Cloud sect, he could even block an attack with the force of 10,000 caddies. The giant mammoth's all-out attack was far more than the force of 10,000 caddies, but for the giant beast, a small insect like Hai Yunfan wasn't worthy of its full strength. With a flick of its thick, pillar-like trunk, it was enough to smash a person's body into pieces. If the person didn't shatter, it would double its strength and flick again. Hai Yunfan's soft cloud sword just happened to block the first attack of the giant mammoth, and then borrowed the force to fly down the cliff. If he tried to escape in any direction he would be caught by the giant mammoth and trampled to death on the spot. As for falling down the cliff, it wasn't a big problem. The cliffs of the frozen wind valley were covered in snow all year round, and with the soft cloud sword's ability to neutralize the force. Although the recoil almost made him vomit blood, being able to stay alive in front of a rank 3 9th rank giant monster was already a great victory. When he stood up from the pile of snow, Hai Yun Fan still had a smile on his face, but it was hard to tell whether it was a bit proud or a bit bitter. Staying alive was a victory, but after using the black magic 3 times, the opponent was still so far away. Hai Yun Fan also didn't have any trump cards up his sleeves. This time the immortal path might really end here. Of course thinking was one thing, but he still had to try his best. Hai Yun Fan struggled to climb up the cliff bit by bit. With the Peach Blossom Village's unlimited stamina reward, he finally reached the starting point after 3 days. At this time the challenger behind him also caught up. Unexpectedly, the person who caught up was actually Wang Lu's errand boy Wang Zhong. When Hai Yun Fan saw Wang Zhong he almost couldn't recognize him. The last time he saw him, he was still the obedient little errand boy who followed behind his young master. Now that he saw him again, the young man seemed a bit gloomy, and the original simple image of a young man was nowhere to be seen. Hai Yun Fan was not surprised. Born in a royal family, when he first met Wang Zhong, he already felt that Wang Zhong was rebellious. In a place like the Immortal Path, where everything was possible, it was impossible for Wang Zhong to be under someone else's control for a long time. In the end, as expected, Wang Zhong broke up with Wang Lu. No wonder Wang Zhong's face was full of vicissitudes. Indeed, love made people mature. Hai Yun Fan saw Wang Zhong, and Wang Zhong also saw Hai Yun Fan. In just a moment, that gloomy face was replaced by a sincere and simple smile. Isn't this the prince? Hai Yun Fan also put on a smile. No matter how Wang Zhong and Wang Lu quarreled, it had nothing to do with him, the third party. They were all companions in the frozen wind valley, so why did he have to give them a bad look? Wang Zhong? I didn't expect to see you here. Hearing Hai Yun Fan call out his name, Wang Zhong's face showed both surprise and a trace of emotion, but he quickly got to the point. Is the prince resting here? Although he asked this, Wang Zhong's eyes swept across Hai Yun Fan's body. His tattered coat and muddy body all showed that Hai Yun Fan was in a sorry state. Moreover, the fact that he had left the Peach Blossom Village so early and was caught up by the people who came later was enough to show that something was wrong. Hai Yun Fan did not hide anything and directly told Wang Zhong about his experience. The more he spoke, the uglier Wang Zhong's face became. Along the way, Wang Zhong had also put in a lot of effort. He had used up almost half of the reward he got from the Peach Blossom Village. He thought that the remaining part should be enough to get him through the last stage, but after hearing Hai Yun Fan's description, Wang Zhong knew that it was impossible. He did not hide anything. I got 5 invisibility talismans from the Peach Blossom Village, but if I'm more than 3 meters away from it, I'll be discovered and I can't hide my smell and sound. If it's like what your highness said, that giant beast is blocking the way behind us, then I don't think the invisibility talismans will be of much use. Hai Yun Fan said, even if we can avoid that giant beast, it still won't work. I feel that in this stage we must find a way to defeat it. Simply avoiding it won't be recognized. Defeat it? Are you kidding me? How can someone without cultivation defeat that kind of monster? Wang Zhong found it hard to believe. Hai Yun Fan explained, it's still possible to use the power of the environment to defeat it. For example, luring it to fall off a cliff and find a nearby monster to fight with. Then, the challenger can take advantage of the situation. Or, you can find a way to break through under these extreme natural conditions. There's always a way. Wang Zhong smiled and did not respond. Hai Yun Fan's words just now reminded him of the young master that he had served before, and he felt a little unhappy. Hai Yun Fan continued, but I've tested it before. That giant beast is very smart, and it has lived in the frozen valley for a much longer time than we have. It would be very difficult to design a trap for it. Moreover, its strength is far greater than the other monsters here, so it's not realistic for us to take advantage of the situation. Oh, no wonder there hasn't been any successful cases in the past hundreds of years. Wang Zhong could not help but say, in the past hundreds of years the Peach Blossom Village did not exist. This time, with the Peach Blossom Village's immortal tools as a reward, we might have a chance. Hai Yun Fan was a little amused. With your invisibility talisman? Of course I'm not the only one. There are a few of my friends behind us. Hai Yun Fan was finally surprised. There were 4 or 5 roads behind the Peach Blossom Village, and the number of people who could pass through the Peach Blossom Village was about 13 to 14. On average there should only be 3 or 4 people on each road. But from Wang Zhong's tone, it seemed that there were a lot of people on this road in the Frozen Wind Valley. Moreover, has he already found the organization? No wonder he had a falling out with Wang Lu. It turns out that he had nothing to fear. Now that he appeared in front of me, he should also be the vanguard. But who could make Wang Zhong willingly abandon his original master? Not long after, the answer was revealed. Unexpectedly, but within reason, the person who tried to rope Wang Zhong in was Prince Zhu Qin of the Great Ming Kingdom in the Blue River region. The Great Ming Kingdom was only a 5th-ranked country in the 9 provinces. Not to mention the Grand Cloud Empire, it was not even in the top 3 among the vassal countries of the Grand Cloud Empire. However, it was precisely because of this kind of small country that the members of the royal family were especially good at interpersonal relationships. Moreover, Wang Zhong was born in the Great Ming Kingdom, so he instinctively feared the royal family of his country. As long as the prince deliberately tried to rope him in, a 10-year-old kid like Wang Zhong would be a piece of cake. As for the 2 people beside Prince Zhu Qin, they were also prominent nobles from various countries. One of them was even more powerful than Zhu Qin. But at this time they were willing to serve him as their leader. Of course, no matter how powerful Zhu Qin was, in front of a fierce person like Hai Yunfan, he still had to be respectful. After some small talk, both sides went straight to the point and discussed the countermeasures. Zhu Qin said, "Let's combine the existing resources, 15 Spirit Sword Talismans, 1 Dream Recall Bell, 3 Invisibility Talismans, 1 pack of Soft Stone Powder, 100 Bird Flute. Oh, and the exhausted Black Taming Scarecrow." Hai Yunfan shrugged indifferently and gestured for him to continue. In addition, everyone has different special rewards such as unlimited physical strength, doubled strength, and so on. If it's a one-on-one fight, I believe it's a miracle that Prince Hai Yunfan was able to come this far. But if we work together, there's hope for us to pass this stage. Hai Yunfan nodded in agreement and added, "At least in this stage we're not competitors. Everyone's goal is the same." That's right, as long as we can defeat that giant beast, all of us will become the inner disciples of Lingjian School. If there's any competition, wait until we enter the school. Wang Zhong also said with a smile, "Moreover, it's really fate that the 5 of us can meet on this road. Usually, there are only 2 or 3 people on a road. We have more people and more strength, so we'll definitely pass this stage smoothly." Ah, that's right, there's strength in numbers. After setting the tone, the next step was the battle plan. The plan was very simple. Everyone would go together, hypnotize the beast with the Dream Recall Bell, break its defense with Soft Stone Powder, and harass it with the 100 Bird Flute. Then, everyone would hold a Spirit Sword Talisman and focus fire on the beast's vital parts. According to Hai Yunfan's calculation, with this set of tactics, the probability of killing the mammoth was more than 70%. After all, it was lowered by the Black Taming Scarecrow. If it was a Class 3 9th rank monster, they wouldn't have any chance of winning. After setting the plan, there was no time to lose. If the Black Taming Scarecrow lost its effect, they could only die with a grievance. Then, with Hai Yunfan leading the way, the group of 5 carefully approached the mammoth's cave. Following the old road, after turning a corner, Hai Yunfan once again saw the giant ice beast that forced him to jump off the cliff to survive. Wait a minute. Am I seeing things? Hai Yunfan rubbed his eyes very hard, almost squeezing his eyeballs out. Or is it that falling from the cliff made me dizzy and I can't judge the size correctly? There was a reason for Hai Yunfan's surprise. Because 100 meters away, the giant beast that was entrenched in the cave seemed to have doubled in size. Its original height was 10 feet, but after the Black Taming Scarecrow took effect, it was only 20 feet tall. Now it was at least 15 feet tall. The icicles on its body had also become sharper, and under the long hair, its muscles seemed to have expanded several times, making the giant beast look more burly and aggressive. When the people behind Hai Yunfan saw this scene, they couldn't help but exclaim, What is this thing? You want us to deal with this big guy? We're just going to give it some snacks. That petrifying powder can't even melt a single icicle, right? Can the Spirit Sword Talisman make it itch a little?" In horror, Zhu Qin suddenly turned around and pulled Hai Yunfan up. "Didn't you say that you've already weakened that guy by at least 30%? Hai Yunfan also smiled bitterly, but in his heart, he cursed, "Why would I lie about this kind of thing? Would I get extra points for killing my teammates? Would it kill me to use my brain?" It was obvious that he had encountered a monster that had mutated. Monsters changing was not rare in the immortal cultivation world. A monster accidentally swallowed a heavenly treasure, had an epiphany after many years of painstaking cultivation, or was cured of hemorrhoids that had troubled them for a long time. All of these things could make the monster's cultivation soar overnight, and the growth rate could be extremely shocking. A fox demon that had cultivated for thousands of years could transform from a level 3 small demon into a level 6 nine-tailed fox overnight. Now, this western continent mammoth had grown from 20 feet to 15 feet, which was already considered a good price. However, having said that, that fox demon met an infatuated Yuanying stage-old monster, who was willing to sacrifice his own cultivation base to have a double cultivation with her. Only then did his cultivation base skyrocket. This mammoth had a hideous appearance, so which hardcore senior brother of Spirit Sword sect would be willing to have sex with it? Please come out for everyone to admire. Obviously, there was another reason for the change. What the hell is this? Above the clouds, Lu Xian, the master of the Misty Peak, flew into a rage. Which son of AB** TCH changed Icewind Valley? You think a level 3 9th rank mammoth is not fierce enough? Will you only be satisfied if you upgrade it to level 3 3rd rank, where it can crush a foundation establishment cultivator with 1 foot? Do you hate newcomers that much? In front of Lu Xian, a group of black and white disciples lowered their heads in silence. Although the master of the Misty Peak was cursing, he was obviously not scolding the people of the Misty Peak. In this immortal gathering, apart from the sect leader, only that person had the authority to change the immortal map. Sure enough, when Lu Xian was talking non-stop, an indignant female voice came from behind him. Senior Martial Brother, you're talking nonsense again. I found that ever since you mastered the King Pill and gave birth to a nascent soul, your temper has become very bad. Is it postpartum depression? Lu Xian was so angry that his primordial spirit almost split apart. He turned around and pointed at the woman in white. If you don't give me a clear explanation today, I will go to the sect leader and ask for an explanation. The woman sneered. Explanation? Fine, I will give you an explanation. It's true that I modified the immortal painting, but my modifications only made it more human-like. Lu Xian was shocked by the woman's shamelessness. He turned around and pointed at the cloud, trembling. Level 3 3rd rank, this is how humane you are? However, the woman was not ashamed at all. Instead, she smiled proudly and said, that's right. When Hai Yunfan was alone, this mammoth was level 3 9th rank. Now that they have a team of 5 people, the strength of the mammoth should be increased. This is what we say, there is strength in numbers. Lu Xian almost knelt down. Because there are more people, the monster is more powerful? Chapter 21. The woman in white strength in numbers almost made Lu Xian vomit blood. However, this was not the end. He heard the woman show off again. I have added the setting of strength in numbers in Icewind Valley, Red Ridge Mountain, Clear Sky Peak. Now the immortal painting will completely eliminate the possibility of using human wave tactics. The function is more perfect, and the degree of humanization has reached a new high. What do you think? Are you convinced now? Indeed, he was convinced. If he didn't accept it, he was afraid he would have a heart attack. Lu Xian tried to calm his anger. The mysterious ice-fighting intent sprinkled a burst of coolness in his jade mansion, cooling down the crazily spinning misty immortal heart. Junior sister, I don't care anymore. If there's a problem, you go and explain it to senior brother Zhangxing and senior brother sect leader. Lu Xian flicked his sleeves and left. His disciples looked at each other in dismay, and then looked at the excited fifth martial uncle. Very quickly, under the lead of a few senior brothers, they collectively ran away with their tails between their legs, leaving only 2 senior brothers who were ordered to keep an eye on them, unable to sit or stand still. Fifth martial uncle ignored those 2 people and just stood on the edge of the cliff, watching the changes in the clouds. The isolation of the cloud and mist great array made it so that ordinary disciples could only see the embryonic form of the clouds. However, in the eyes of this elder, she could undoubtedly see more content. However, not long after, the woman shook her head in disappointment. TSK, a bunch of rabble. After becoming a team, the increase in strength can't even catch up with the monsters. What a waste. The nearby martial brothers trembled when they heard this. They couldn't help but feel lucky that their master, Lu Xian, took them in as his disciple when he was traveling, and didn't walk on this inhumane immortal path. From Category 3 9th rank to Category 3 3rd rank, although it was only a 6 rank increase, the intensity had actually increased by at least 3 or 4 times, and the number of challengers had only increased by 4 times. According to Fifth Martial Uncle's meaning, it seemed that she would only be satisfied if there was a linear relationship. This was AF * King joke. It was not like they were stepping on the Big Dipper 7 stars array. After watching for a while, the woman lost interest. There's no hope for this group of people. Then she turned around and left. The black and white Marshall brothers beside her looked at each other and smiled bitterly. The junior Marshall brother said, "Fifth Marshall uncle's way of thinking is really hard to understand. I think the quality of these people is pretty good. If they don't have any hope, then wouldn't this great immortal gathering be in vain?" The senior Marshall brother also said, "That's right." Luckily, fifth Marshall uncle participated in the whole process and ran all the errands. I've been in the sect for more than 20 years, and this is the first time I've seen fifth Marshall uncle so passionate about something. But if she can't even choose a single person in the end, it won't look good on her. As the two of them were talking, they heard a voice coming from behind them. "Oh, you guys don't have to worry. There will definitely be someone who can pass. Damn it, that's a ferocious person who can't be stopped." Hearing this voice, the black and white Marshall brothers were so scared that they almost fell off the cliff and died. "Greetings, fifth Marshall uncle." The woman didn't pay attention to these two juniors. She just thought of the youth who was almost a cheat and scratched her head. Seeing that their Marshall uncle had no intention of punishing them, the two of them heaved a sigh of relief. The Marshall brother mustered up his courage and asked, "Marshall uncle, who is that fierce person you were talking about?" "Who else could it be?" Fifth Marshall uncle asked. "You've been here for so long, can't you tell who's strong and who's weak?" If Zhu Qin and the others were strong, then Hai Yunfan was obviously super strong. As for the trial taker who had just walked out of the Peach Blossom Village and coincidentally walked into the Frozen Wind Valley, he was as strong as a cheat. However, no matter how strong he was before he started cultivating, how could he go against a Class 3 Grade 3 mammoth? If it was the Red Ridge Mountain or the Blue Cloud Peak, where the monsters had not been strengthened, there might still be a possibility of passing, but now, perhaps it was really the will of the heavens? But what was the basis of fifth Marshall uncle's confidence? Thinking of this, the junior Marshall brother suddenly had a flash of inspiration. "Marshall uncle, are you talking about the reward of the Peach Blossom Village?" Fifth Marshall uncle glanced at him. "Of course, what else could it be? The key to the entire immortal path lies in the Peach Blossom Village. Hundreds of years ago, the old antiques had a screw loose and wrote the second grade as the third grade, completely cutting off the immortal path. If we don't give these little rabbits some convenience, no one will be able to pass the immortal path in another 500 years. Speaking of which, when the ancestors had a screw loose, the sect leaders in the next few hundred years were completely brainless. They knew that they were wrong, but they still wanted to make the best of it, saying that the ancestral method cannot be changed. Damn it, which ancestor said that the position of the Heavenly Sword Hall Elder could be abolished so easily? Fifth Marshall uncle's audacity was well known in the sect, but the black and white duo did not have her aggressiveness. They immediately kept quiet out of fear who dared to talk. After a while, the junior Marshall brother could not help but ask, "Are those items Marshall uncle's collection?" In the junior Marshall brother's view, the woman in white was an elder of the sect, so these 7th or 8th grade magical items were naturally at her fingertips. He just did not know what kind of collection it was that could allow a person without cultivation to fight against a Class 3 Grade 3 mammoth. In the end, fifth Marshall uncle very naturally replied, "How could I pay for it out of my own pocket? Of course, it's directly connected to the sect's warehouse. That stupid sect leader didn't even give me the elder's allowance. Right now, I'm so poor that I can't wait to go down the mountain and rob people." The black and white duo looked at each other in dismay, but no one could say anything. The sect's fifth elder was very secretive. Even the senior Marshall brother, who had been in the sect for more than 20 years, rarely saw the fifth elder's true appearance. Unexpectedly, this person was indeed worthy of being the one that their master mentioned. "Then, fifth Marshall uncle, according to your design, what kind of magical item can that Wang Lu get? To be able to fight against a Class 3 Grade 3 mammoth, it should be a second-rank magical item, right? But how can a person without cultivation use it?" Fifth Marshall uncle was also somewhat puzzled. "I'm not too sure. Because the stupid sect leader doesn't allow me to directly touch the sect's warehouse. I just designed a scoring formula that automatically extracts the items from the warehouse according to the score. Right now, most of the points of this motley crew are between 3 to 5,000. As for that kid, I haven't seen the second half of his task, but I think he should have 30 to 50,000 points. Not to mention a second-rank magical item, he can even exchange for a 9th-rank magical item. At the level of magical items, there are quite a few that don't rely on the master's cultivation and can be released automatically. These things are priceless at the foot of the mountain, but there are many in the Lingjian School's warehouse. That kid's luck isn't too bad, so he should be able to get one or two. When the time comes, if we think carefully, the chance of winning against this stupid elephant should be 70 to 80%. Hearing the designer's judgment, the senior and junior Marshall brothers all gasped. 70 to 80% doesn't sound like much, but in the past hundreds of years, how many heroes in the world have returned in defeat at this stage? This young man who was born in the mountains has a 70 to 80% chance of winning. He is indeed a person with great immortal fate. If he can really enter the sect and diligently practice for 10 to 20 years, not to mention becoming an inner disciple, he might even become a true disciple. Thinking of this, the black and white senior Marshall brothers couldn't help but show envy on their faces. At this moment there was another change in the cloud. The three of them looked carefully. It turned out that after entering the Icewind Valley, Wang Lu, who had stopped for a long time, finally took a step forward. With this step he crossed thousands of rivers, mountains and many dangerous passes. When his feet landed, Wang Lu was already in front of the last pass of the Icewind Valley. The distance that the predecessors had spent more than 10 days to complete with the help of magical items, but Wang Lu actually completed it in one step. He came to the side of Hai Yunfan and the others who were holding an emergency battle meeting. This step scared Hai Yunfan and the others so much that they almost had a mental breakdown. The jaws of the senior and junior Marshall brothers on the cloud dislocated, and even Wang Lu himself trembled. What the F***CK? Where is this? As for the fifth Marshall uncle who was enjoying the scenery on the misty peak, his expression changed. What the F***CK? Cloud treading boots? The black and white senior Marshall brothers on the side exclaimed at the same time, what the F***CK? Cloud treading boots? Even the junior Marshall brothers who have been in the sect for less than 5 years have heard of the name Cloud Treading Boots. It was a 5th-rank spiritual treasure collected by the Lingjian school, a spiritual treasure. Its level was even higher than magical treasures. Even if it was a 9th-rank spiritual treasure, it was enough to make the Taoist master of the King Pill of a common sect badly injured, let alone this 5th-rank spiritual treasure that was personally refined by the ancestor of the Lingjian school. Without the cultivation base of the King Pill, ordinary immortal cultivators would not be able to refine it. However, before the junior and junior Marshall brothers could wonder how Wang Lu, who has no cultivation foundation, could activate the 5th-rank spiritual treasure, another change occurred. In the canyon, Wang Lu crossed thousands of mountains and rivers in one step. However, in front of him, not only were there Hai Yunfan and other acquaintances, but also an enraged, more than 15 meters tall, ferocious beast. In the western continent, this mutated ice mammoth was enough to destroy a city and destroy a country. Seeing this thing for the first time, Wang Lu was shocked. He hastily pulled out a sword from his waist and tried to defend himself. Then the sword light flashed, dazzling everyone's eyes. On the cloud there were 3 curses. Black Frost Sword? In the Spirit Sword sect there were a lot of hidden swords. This mysterious frost sword might not be ranked among the top, but it was still a famous 3rd-rank spiritual treasure. In the frozen wind valley, with the advantage of favorable weather and favorable conditions, its power was comparable to a 1st-rank spiritual treasure, which was enough to become a 3rd-rank sex treasure. However, unexpectedly it was easily pulled out by Wang Lu. Fifth Marshall uncle, didn't you say it's at most a 9th-rank magical treasure? How could a spiritual treasure come out? And it's a 3rd-rank one? 5th Marshall uncle also cursed 10,000 times in his heart. I also King want to know. Then Wang Lu held the 3-feet-long sword in his hand. He didn't feel that the sword in his hand was sharp enough to split a mountain, and just lightly swung it down. When a 3rd-rank spiritual treasure fell into the hands of a mortal, it should be like ordinary iron, unable to stimulate even half a bit of its magical power. If the person who refined the treasure didn't stop it, it was even more likely to instantly suck out the owner's essence and turn them into a dry corpse. However, when Wang Lu swung his sword down, the ground in front of him became a gust of wind, and ice and snow exploded. In the midst of the howling wind and snow, the black frost sword light became a bit brighter, directly piercing through the sky full of ice and snow. The place where the mutated mammoth stood was made of ice and snow of the Icewind Valley, but under the bombardment of the sword light, it cracked layer by layer. Then, the broken ice cracked into fine particles, and the particles turned into even finer particles until they disappeared. All of this was like the age of chaos, where heaven and earth were strange. After an unknown amount of time, when the storm subsided, the 15-feet-tall giant beast had long disappeared. At the same time, The 100 feet of glacier in front of Wang Lu and the 1,000 miles of snow field also disappeared. The place where the sword tip was pointing was actually a piece of green mountains and clear water, with clouds and mist. Although he didn't know where it was, it couldn't be the Icewind Valley. Chapter 22. In fact, the green water and green mountains in front of Wang Lu were indeed not the scenery of the Icewind Valley. The Icewind Valley was a cave that the masters of the Lingjian school had refined into the Misty Peak. It seemed to be boundless, but in fact, it had its own boundaries. This place was used for the Misty Peak disciples who did not cultivate, and the strongest monsters in the cave were no more than level 3 monsters. Therefore, the boundaries were not made too strong to save costs. Who would have thought that there would be someone holding a rank 3 spirit treasure in this place? Therefore, the huge hole in front of Wang Lu was very reasonable. Under the full force of the spirit sword, the barrier of the Icewind Valley was broken, revealing the scenery of the Misty Peak. Even Wang Lu himself did not expect the power of the sword to be so great. He looked at the broken space in front of him with a blank face. When he opened the treasure chest in the Peach Blossom Village, he was sure that the thing in the chest would be a magical weapon. After all, it was the reward for perfectly completing the hidden task. But there was a difference between magical weapons and magical weapons. He had just broken through the entrance level of the Lingjian school, so at most he would get a small magical weapon in the early stage. If the Shenyuan sword really fell out of the chest, then he must have been dreaming. As a result, when he really entered the Icewind Valley, he found that his dreams seemed to have come true. Crossing thousands of mountains and rivers with one step and killing a mutated mammoth with one sword, Wang Lu felt as if he had put on some kind of magical battle robe, and was omnipotent on the immortal path. However, it was not easy for Wang Lu to get a perfect evaluation in the Peach Blossom Village, and he was preparing to kill to his heart's content in the next level with a sharp weapon. He did not expect that although this sword was satisfying, it seemed to be a bit too fast and he did not feel satisfied at all. Or was this also a part of the immortal path? Since ancient times, sages have always been lonely. Was this to let people experience the loneliness of being invincible in advance to temper their heart of Tao? Well, in that case it was really lonely at the top, which really made people sigh. Thinking of this, Wang Lu was filled with emotion. He loosened his hand, and the black frost sword fell to the ground. Clang! The sword collided with the solid ice, and in the next moment, the indestructible spirit sword shattered into pieces. Wang Lu was extremely surprised. He looked down at the wreckage of the mysterious frost sword. After a moment he sighed and nodded. In the end, it was impossible for them to really give him that kind of artifact that could destroy the heavens and the earth. After killing the spirit monster, its energy had dried up and it had turned into fragments. Obviously, this was a one-time use item that was specially used to let him smoothly pass the test. It was a mission item. Although this design was a little extreme, it was indeed ingenious beyond compare. The designer was a talent. Not only did he have inspiration, but he also had courage. Think about it. Putting such a world-destroying mission item into the hands of the trial takers without worry, wasn't he afraid that something would go wrong in the process? TSK, good courage, I like it. Just as he was thinking about this, suddenly, a golden light came from the green mountains in front of him. The speed was so fast that in the blink of an eye, it turned from a small dot of light on the horizon into a human figure and landed in front of him. Wang Lu blinked his eyes and saw that it was a clean and crisp young woman in a white robe. She was about 26 or 27 years old. Her temperament had both the childish temperament of a young girl and the charm of a mature woman. Although she was not a devastatingly beautiful woman, she was still a rare beauty. Wang Lu had just sized her up and was praising the woman in white in his heart when he heard a hair-raising wail. Oh my God! It's really broken. He saw the woman in white kneeling at the feet of Wang Lu as if she had lost her parents. She held the wreckage of the mysterious frost sword in her hand and was about to cry. This is God's will to kill me? This mournful voice almost made Wang Lu fall to the ground. Oh my God! I can't tell that she's actually a tough woman? However, before he could think too much, the tough woman in white suddenly stood up and grabbed Wang Lu's collar. Tell me, did the stupid leader send you to play with me? Wang Lu wished that there were 100 grass mud horses stampeding inside his head. He inwardly said, this woman is really valiant, not only valiant but also arrogant. Her incoherent speech is a living embodiment of a crazy woman. Could it be that she is the public prostitute of Spirit Sword sect? Seeing that Wang Lu was at a loss, the woman didn't bother to say more. She let go of him and stared at the wreckage of the mysterious frost sword. Her mournful expression gradually disappeared and she became focused. Damn it, this matter must be pushed out. Yes, just say that it's Lu Xian's good deed. As for the reason, let me think about it. Wang Lu pretended not to hear all this and asked, may I ask this senior, the gatekeeper of the Icewind Valley has been killed, and the path to the Misty Peak has also been opened. Am I considered to have passed? The woman was stunned for a moment and then she sneered and said, yes, you passed. Not only you this time, everyone has King passed. As she spoke, a series of cracking sounds came from the green mountains and clear waters in the distance. A moment later, a few more holes appeared next to the broken hole, revealing a sea of lava, blue clouds and mist, layers of ghostly shadows. Obviously, those were the Red Ridge Mountain, the Blue Cloud Peak and the Netherworld Path, which were the other forks in the last pass of the Immortal Path. Now that they were connected together, the road to the key point was open together. The woman in white said coldly, not bad, you broke through the 4 cave mansions with one sword. You're famous now. At this point, Wang Lu also realized that something seemed to have gone wrong, and he couldn't help but wonder, just now, I made heaven and earth leave with one sword strike. Wasn't that part of the designer's careful plan? However, as soon as he finished speaking, the woman in white flew into a rage. How King sick am I to design such a troublesome part for myself? Wang Lu was inexplicably shocked once again. This tough woman, who could be called the master of roaring, was actually the designer of the Immortal Path who made me feel like a bosom friend? Sure enough, the Immortal Path was unpredictable, and one couldn't judge a book by its cover. But then he was even more puzzled. So, if you didn't design it on purpose, then, what's going on? The woman in white's face was full of vicissitudes and helplessness. God knows which idiot stuffed the sect leader's golden seal into the storeroom, and then who knows what kind of *T luck you took out that token. Hearing this, Wang Lu rolled his eyes and took out a golden token from his waist. This? The woman in white trembled all over. *CK, it really is the sect leader's golden seal. I was wondering how you could summon a spiritual treasure. It really is the sect leader's golden seal. The sect leader's golden seal. The holder of the seal was like the sect leader himself. He could command the whole school and no one disobeyed him. Spiritual treasures with spirits were called spiritual treasures. The spiritual treasure of Lingjian School was naturally a member of the school, and was restricted by the golden seal. Wang Lu held the golden seal and waved the sword to cut it. Therefore, even if the mysterious frost sword didn't have spiritual energy, it had to cut it. Not only did it have to cut it, but it had to be beautiful, gorgeous, and make heaven and earth leave. The mysterious frost sword was a loyal sword with a backbone. Even if its master's request was so rude, even if it would cause irreparable damage to the sword, it still cut it. Therefore, the glacier and snowfield turned into nothingness, and the mysterious frost sword also broke into pieces and no longer existed. The answer to the mystery was revealed. The reason was not complicated. The woman in white's mind was very fast, and she had already recovered from the shock. The reason why Wang Lu could get the golden seal was obviously because he had gotten an incredibly high score in the Peach Blossom Village. Part of it was because of this kid's luck. Of course, there were also some mistakes when she designed the formula. She should have designed an upper limit for the score. But now, these problems were no longer important. The important thing was that the sect leader's golden seal was shining right in front of her. What did this mean? It was very simple. It meant that as long as she got the golden seal, she would be the sect leader. Of course, the real sect leader, that idiot, was not dead yet, but so what? At worst, she could just divide and rule and have 2 parties rule. Not to mention other things, at least she could fight for the financial power of the school. Or, even if she couldn't become the sect leader before that idiot found her, she could take the golden seal and empty the school's funds. After careful calculation, the Lingjian school's savings had already reached an astronomical figure, and there were as many high-grade spirit stones as there were grains of sand in the Ganges River. As long as she could get her hands on the golden seal, she would be able to live a carefree life for the next few hundred years. In the eyes of the woman in white, the golden seal had already become her beautiful life, and it was waving at her affectionately. However, at this moment, Wang Lu suddenly let out a cry of surprise. The golden seal in his hand suddenly turned into a stream of light and flew into the distance. The woman in white frowned. You want to run? Dream on. You're mine. The next moment, a white light streaked across the snowy plain, closely following the golden light, and rushed into the world of the Misty Peak. Damn, it's just a golden seal, how dare it fly so fast? Are you trying to rebel? On the Misty Peak, the woman in white stepped on her flying sword and turned into a stream of light, closely following the golden seal of the sect leader. The golden seal that symbolized a beautiful life seemed to be within reach, but she just couldn't touch it. The woman gritted her teeth in hatred. Because of her cultivation method, the speed of her flying sword was not fast, but she couldn't even fly past a mere golden seal, which was a disgrace. Of course, the woman didn't care about the disgrace at all. She only cared about the golden seal. If she let it escape, she would regret it for the next 20 years. One flew desperately, and the other chased with all her might. Soon they left the territory of the Misty Peak and flew higher. After an unknown amount of time, the speed of the golden seal in front of her seemed to have slowed down a little. The white-robed woman's spirits rose, thinking that it was true that man could conquer the heavens. Although the golden seal was flying extremely fast, it was still defeated by her invincible willpower. "Haha, it's my turn to be the sect leader." Then, when she stretched out her hand and was about to take the golden seal into her palm, a vigorous and powerful palm grabbed the golden seal first. The woman in white frowned. "Ha, snatching my love away? How dare you? Who dares to do this in front of me? Hello, sect leader, long time no see." In front of her, the sect leader of the Lingjin school looked at the woman in white expressionlessly, then said lightly, "Indeed, long time no see. What can I do for you?" The woman in white laughed and slowly reached out to grab the golden seal. "I lost something and was looking for it everywhere. I didn't expect you to find it for me first, senior brother. Thank you very much. I'll be careful in the future and won't throw things away." Then the sect leader sighed and put the golden seal back into his pocket, saying, "What you lost is your integrity, right? Okay, I'm busy here. Let's not talk too much, I'll just say a few words. Please say, according to preliminary statistics, because of the flaws in your Peach Blossom Village design, the Lingjin School's current losses are Frozen Wind Valley, Red Ridge Mountain, Blue Cloud Peak and Netherworld Path. The rank 3 Spirit Treasure Mysterious Frost Sword was completely destroyed. The Sword Spirit Yin Shuang was seriously injured. The rank 5 Spirit Treasure Cloud Treading Boots was seriously damaged. The Artifact Spirit Lu Yun sealed herself, and other large and small accidents. The total losses are equivalent to 200,000 high-grade spirit stones. This is a discount from the internal price, so don't bargain with me. According to your current offerings, it's about 20 years. So, for the next 20 years, you won't have anything to offer. Senior brother, your joke is a bit too scary. Really? Then you should cultivate your mind, I'm not joking. Senior brother, you're forcing a good girl to become a prostitute. Junior sister, ask yourself honestly, did I really force you to become like this? In short, if you don't pay me, I'll go down the mountain and rob you. Well, if junior sister really wants to make money for our school, I'll be very pleased. If you need it, I can even give you a privateering license. Fuck, senior brother, have you lost your integrity? Chapter 23. The Lingjin School had not held an immortal gathering for more than 100 years. Now that it had opened, it had a shocking harvest. After leaving the Peach Blossom Village, there were a total of 17 challengers. Thanks to Wang Lu, 15 of the 17 had passed. Except for the 2 unlucky ones who had given up early, even Hai Yunfan, Zhu Qin, Wang Zhong, and the others had managed to climb out of some ice cave and reach the finish line after the heavens and earth had left them. With one sword strike, the immortal path had been cut in half, and everyone had passed the trial unconditionally. This unexpected joy was simply dizzying. However, on the other side, the Lingjin School was in an uproar. If the previous problem with the Peach Blossom Village was just a sore spot, then this harvest had become a big pain. Even the Misty Peak leader could not make a decision on this matter, so naturally, the sect leader of the Spirit Sword Mountain, the Stellar Peak, was involved in the argument. At the top of the Stellar Peak, in the sect leader's small room, the 9 current elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall were gathered together. The Great Elder, who was also the current sect leader, Feng Yin, was sitting at the head of the table. At this time he was resting with his eyes closed, not saying a word. The second elder, Lu Xian, could not calm down. He repeatedly slapped the armrest of his chair and roared. "I've already said that we can't let that woman do whatever she wants. That idiot's brain is simply broken. You guys just have to let her do whatever she wants. You guys just have to believe in her so-called human innovation." Sure enough, something went wrong. "Tell me, how are we going to clean up this mess?" The other elders had different expressions, but no one wanted to get involved in this mess. Only a lively girl, who was sitting at the head of the table, smiled and tried to smooth things over. "Second Marshal brother, calm down. You are the teacher of the inner court, so as a teacher, you should pay attention to your manners. Moreover, even if you blame fifth martial sister, it won't help. Seeing that pretty smiling face, Lucien did not want to lose his temper. He just shook his head and complained, "Junior martial sister, it's easy for you to say that, but now it's not your turn to worry." The girl continued to snicker. "Hee, who asked you to be the master of the Misty Peak and I'm just the master of the Carefree Peak? If you ask me, you might as well just accept all of them. It just so happens that our Lingjian school is in decline, and with these 15 more people, it will be more lively." Lucien raised his eyebrows and glared at her. "Junior sister, don't joke around. Ethereal Peak has been around for more than 100 years and there are only 34 inner sect disciples. Now that there are 15 new disciples, wouldn't it be a mess? The original plan was to have around 10 people make it to the end. Then, we would make an exception and carefully select 3 to 5 people. In the end, that woman messed around with us and now there's no way to clean up the mess." Sixth Patriarch Lu Li, who had been resting with his eyes closed, slowly opened his mouth and said, "Apart from other things, the resources of our sect cannot support 15 more inner disciples. Although the days of our Lingjian school are rich, we cannot afford to waste them." Lucien nodded and said to Hua Yun, "Look, even junior brother Lu Li has said so. Junior sister, what else do you have to say?" The junior sister stuck out her tongue and said, "The person in charge of the finance has already spoken. What else can I, a person who eats from others, say? If I make senior brother Lu Li angry, he will cut the budget of our Carefree Peak this year, and then I will have no chance." Lu Li was angry and amused at the same time. "Junior sister, what are you talking about? When did I cut your budget? When did I say no to you when you want money? Humph, last time I wanted to buy Star Aurora diamonds, you didn't approve it, right? How can you use public funds to buy jewelry for yourself? Ahem." At this time, the first elder, who was sitting at the head of the table, finally couldn't stand it anymore. "Okay, stop quarreling. This matter indeed cannot be left unchecked, but as for how to solve it, we need to come up with a practical plan. You said that these 15 people can't all be recruited into the Misty Peak, and I agree, but what about next? There must be a solution." The patriarchs looked at each other and felt a little embarrassed. Everyone had their own methods, but no one had the confidence to convince everyone present. As a result, it was the sixth patriarch who said, "According to my calculation, these 15 people can't all be recruited into the Misty Peak. But there is no problem if they join the Carefree Peak. The resources of the sect can completely support them." No matter which sect, the difference between the inner core and the outer core was like the difference between heaven and earth. Lingjian School pursued the elite policy, and it was even more so for a place with a declining population. There were 34 inner core disciples, but more than 200 outer core disciples. The resources invested by the sect on the two sides were more than 10 times more than the difference. However, Lingjian School might be able to support the expenses of 15 outer core disciples, but a certain junior sister, Hua Yun, who was also the master of the Carefree Peak, was not willing to accept it. "What do you mean, sixth brother? Do you think the Carefree Peak is a waste shop?" Lu Li quickly waved his hand and explained, "I am just providing a solution from the perspective of the sect's resources." "Junior sister, please don't misunderstand." The junior martial sister sat down with an unhappy expression. She then said, "In my opinion, this great immortal ascension assembly hasn't successfully recruited anyone for over 100 years. It would be better to simply kick these 15 people down the mountain." Lu Li had just angered Hua Yun, so he tactfully agreed, "Well, this can save a lot of resources for the sect. Don't come up with any ideas. Kick these 15 people out? What? According to the rules, they have all successfully completed the immortal path and even reached the Misty Peak." Disciplinary Elder Fang He angrily pointed at Hua Yun and Lu Li and said, "If they are from those evil sects or small sects that don't show their faces, then it's fine. But our Lingjian school has done this kind of thing. It is simply a disgrace to our ancestors." Hua Yun stuck out her tongue and didn't dare to contradict this elder whose prestige was second only to the sect leader. But after a while she tilted her head and whispered, "Old stubborn people who are destined to be alone for the rest of their lives." Fang He's ears twitched. He was so angry that he wanted to die. Fortunately, the sect leader spoke in time. Hee, now it's troublesome. We can't keep them and we can't accept them either. What should we do?" Second elder Lucien bluntly said, "In the end, it's because sect leader senior brother spoils fifth junior sister too much. Please come up with a plan for this matter." Speaking of a plan, I do have one. It's actually very simple. Since we think that these 15 people are too many, we can go and screen them ourselves and eliminate those who don't meet the requirements. Disciplinary Elder Fong, he frowned. Sect leader, this is against the rules. Logically speaking, they have already passed the test, so we shouldn't create any more problems. Rules need to be interpreted by people. In my opinion, these 15 people haven't passed the immortal path because the last round was forcibly interrupted by an irresistible external force. They didn't have enough time to complete their trial. Fong He was dumbfounded. This is simply sophistry. Lu Xian naturally applauded the sect leader's proposal. How is this sophistry? This is priceless advice. This time the immortal path has repeatedly changed. Sect leader is already very kind by not letting them start all over again. The Heavenly Sword Hall 10 great elders, now there were 9 of them, had already set the tone. What else could the others say? Thus, this time sect leader's office meeting ended. Half a day later, the Heavenly Sword Hall elders gathered at the Misty Peak to examine the 15 cultivators who should have passed. Most of the 15 cultivators gathered in front of the Misty Peak's Mystic Cloud Hall were filled with resentment. Of course, this was also human nature. When they were full of joy and thought that the door to the immortal path had been opened, they were informed that there would be an additional test. Moreover, judging from the lineup of examiners, the elimination rate of this additional test was quite high. This was like taking off one's pants on the night of the wedding, but when one lifted the veil, he saw his father-in-law smiling like a chrysanthemum flower, stretching out his hand to ask for a large amount of betrothal money. It was simply intolerable. It was no wonder that everyone was resentful. However, even though it was unjust, after making a fuss, they still had to accept reality. After all, even the person who was most qualified to make a fuss was quiet, so the other people's protests were not justified. Wang Lu's silence made many people lose the opportunity to make a fuss. However, this additional test was the most unfair to him. This was because among the 15 people, only Wang Lu was able to overcome all the obstacles and reach the end. The others were completely free riders. However, in the list of additional test participants, Wang Lu's name was impressively on it. No one knew what the people of the Lingjian school were thinking. Could it be that they had never planned to accept any newcomers from the beginning? As for what the Lingjian school was thinking, Wang Lu was not clear and was too lazy to think about it. For him, who was bursting with confidence, the more difficult the trial given by the Lingjian school, the more glorious the final victory would be. In any case, with the heavenly spirit root here, who would dare to disagree? Therefore, when the others gathered in the square in front of the mystical cloud hall to discuss countermeasures, Wang Lu stood alone under a tree and looked on coldly. At this time, the mystical cloud hall had not opened and the method of the trial had not been decided. Even a professional adventurer like him could not figure out the next level, so what could they discuss? It was purely a selfish act. However, he always felt that the future was full of twists and turns, and it might be even more unexpected. While the youngsters in front of the hall were letting their imaginations run wild, time passed minute by minute. The door of the mystical cloud hall still did not open, so everyone could only wait outside. Inside the mystical cloud hall, the elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall were also waiting anxiously. The others had already arrived and were waiting for the additional test to begin, except for the sect leader himself. Although the higher the position, the later the arrival of the person, this was a conventional rule in any line of business. However, Taoist Master Feng Yi never put on such a useless display. His punctuality spirit made many people in his sect pale in comparison, especially the former 5th elder of Heavenly Sword Hall. But this time, the sect leader was half an hour late, which puzzled everyone. The 4th elder, Zhou Ming, was a bit impatient. He ordered his personal disciple, Lu Li, go see what the sect leader is doing and invite him over. A female disciple beside him nodded with a smile, turned into a light and flew away. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the female disciple flew back. Reporting to Master, I can't find the sect leader. Where did you find him? I don't know, Master didn't say anything just now. You? Zhou Ming was tongue-tied and finally shook his head helplessly. Forget it, sit down. Yes. Chapter 24. At the same time in the stellar peak, the sect leader solemnly tapped the bright silver sword in front of him and muttered, Sure enough, he is in this group of people. 5th junior sister, what do you think? At the other end of the bamboo room, a woman in white showed a rare serious expression. I can even be sure of the candidate. Since he can solve my chain of tasks, he can't be an ordinary person. The sect leader said, Little Ling told me and I have seen it myself. I really can't see the aptitude of the chosen one. Tieske, when did you become a person of aptitude? If you really want to talk about aptitude, can you train a talent with heavenly spiritual root? Facing the junior sister's disdain, the sect leader coughed. Junior sister, you seem to have forgotten Yaoer again? Damn it, in short, the person I like, even if he has the 5-element spiritual root, no, even if he has the 6-element spiritual root, it can't be wrong. Moreover, the age of chaos, the chosen one, these nonsense were brought up by senior brother out of nowhere. I just cooperated with you to design a trial to identify special people. If you doubt me, then... The sect leader quickly waved his hand. I don't doubt you, I just feel a little strange. Forget it, junior sister, since you said so, it shouldn't be wrong. I will pay more attention to the chosen one. If necessary, I will have to use the privilege of the sect leader. The junior sister sneered. You can't even bear to use the privilege. What's the point of being the sect leader? Why don't you give up your position to me, and I will show you how to be a good sect leader. However, the sect leader simply ignored her and disappeared with a thought. The woman in white curled her lips and didn't move. In this additional test, the sect leader only asked the elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall to attend. As a former elder, she didn't even have the qualification to attend, so she could only wait outside. However, the woman looked around the room and showed a greedy smile. Although senior brother was known for his poverty, he was still the sect leader. The bamboo room was his cultivation place, so there must be a lot of treasures. Usually, the sect leader would either put down a barrier to prevent people from entering, or he would guard the place himself, so the woman in white never had a chance to take action. But now, it was a godsend opportunity. Then she felt her vision blur and she was already standing outside the bamboo room. Needless to say, the formation inside the room must have been activated and kicked her out. Damn watertight. You're really narrow-minded. While she was complaining, the woman suddenly saw a shiny object on the table. While complaining, the woman suddenly saw something shining on the table. In the blink of an eye, the sect leader. All the elders stood up in unison. Greetings, sect leader senior brother. Hey junior brothers and sisters, there's no need to be so polite. I've come late, so I should apologize to everyone. As the sect leader spoke, he clasped his hands together. However, the direction of his clasped hands was obviously different from where everyone else was standing. Time second, elder, second sect of elder, sect, as elder, sect, of time, sect of sect of. The sect, time, sect, the sect. He had already confirmed the candidate twice in advance. The first time was at the Rue Family Inn, and the second time was at the Golden Bridge of Immortal Ascension. It was a pity that he was busy with other matters during the Great Immortal Ascension Assembly. It was difficult for him to find time, but he had been delayed by his junior martial sister. Otherwise, he would have kept a closer eye on such an important matter. Thinking of this, the sect leader sighed and waved his hand. Let's begin, don't waste time. Thus the additional test began. The method of the additional test was not fancy. The door of the mystical cloud hall was opened, and the scene inside was enveloped in a soft white light. In front of the hall, a few disciples in black and white politely led the participants to stand in front of the hall. Inside the hall, there were 18 sharp eyes that seemed to be able to cut the participants into infinitely tiny pieces, analyzing them inside and out. This was the entire content of the additional test. There were no more complicated and ever-changing mechanisms. Whether they were good or bad, whether they could leave or stay, all depended on the elders' fiery eyes. Of course, at this time, the elders would also seriously open their spiritual eyes to analyze the aptitudes of the youths. Although with their experience, they could roughly judge a person's aptitude just by relying on their intuition, they could not afford to be careless in the grand immortal gathering. And this time, the sect leader had opened his stellar eyes. Not only could he see through the present, he could even see through the future. Thus, even if it was a rare spirit root, they would not be mistaken. However, this was too uncomfortable for the participants. Not to mention the feeling of being exhibited like slaves in a slave trade because of the layer of white light, the participants could not see the situation inside the hall at all. They had no idea whether the results of their additional test were good or bad, and they were also confused about the standards of the Lingjian school's test. While they were perturbed, a disciple in black and white opened his mouth and said, "Next, everyone please walk past the front of the hall one by one." Walk past one by one? Was there no proper order? Then, was it better to walk at the front or at the back? Was it better to walk faster or slower? While the others were worrying about these questions, a certain resolute youth had already strode past the front of the hall. However, it was not the popular Wang Lu, nor was it the outstanding Hai Yunfan, but a certain crown prince from the great Ming kingdom, Zhu Qin. Zhu Qin was giving it his all. With pearls like Wang Lu and Hai Yunfan in front of them, there were only a few opportunities for them to perform. Admittedly, Zhu Qin did not have full confidence, but at least he had to show his decisiveness. He was ranked 10th in the cloud wave map, not because he was indecisive, but because he had overexerted himself on the Golden Bridge, resulting in a lack of physical strength. Thus, he had to rest in the clouds for a long time. Thinking about it afterwards, it was too late for regrets. Zhu Qin really did not want to leave the wrong impression. He had heard that the Lingjian school had always attached great importance to temperament, so he would show them his temperament. 1 step, 2 steps. His steps were steady and no one could tell that the youth was actually very nervous. However, until he successfully walked past the hall, there was no sound. Was it good or bad? No one knew at all. After Zhu Qin, Wang Zhong followed closely. This little attendant might not be as decisive as Zhu Qin, but he was smart enough. This was because he saw that when Zhu Qin stepped forward, Wang Lu had already intended to step forward, but he was obviously a little lazy and did not compete with Zhu Qin. It was okay if Wang Lu did not compete, he would compete. Although he had become independent, Wang Zhong knew his young master's ability best. No matter how incredible his judgment was, it was mostly right. Therefore Wang Zhong followed closely behind and walked past the front of the hall. When he turned his head, he saw Wang Lu smiling at him. Wang Zhong immediately turned his head, his heart in a mess. At this moment there seemed to be some sound coming from the hall. The sound was very soft, but Wang Zhong had sharp ears and eyes so he could barely hear it. Oh, it's really him? Senior brother sect leader, do you think this boy is different from others? Yes, he is indeed a little different. But his aptitude, although not bad, it is not extraordinary. Don't judge him by his aptitude. Wang Zhong couldn't hear the rest of the conversation clearly, but these few words were enough to make his mind go blank. There is hope, there is hope. The sect leader thinks that I am different and can be trained. The ocean of happiness instantly drowned him. While he was in a trance, many people had already walked past the front of the hall. When he came back to his senses, he saw Hai Yunfan walking past the front of the hall with a smile on his face. This time there seemed to be someone talking in the hall. Hai Yunfan did not notice it, but Wang Zhong heard it clearly. Oh, what a pity, what a pity. Haha, it seems that this prince of the Grand Cloud Empire has no chance. Indeed, on the Golden Bridge he stopped before me. It seems that his aptitude is really not enough to enter the Lingjian school. Although he was gloating, Wang Zhong did not show it. He nodded to Hai Yunfan and walked past him. Then he concentrated on waiting for the next trial taker, who was also the last trial taker, Wang Lu. Wang Lu actually wanted to go first. He did not have any special intention. He just wanted to be the first. But since he did not get first place, he might as well wait for the last trial taker. As for the dozens of pairs of eyes beside him, Wang Lu did not care at all. He just swaggered past the front of the hall with an indescribable calmness. Then people clearly heard a series of exclamations in the hall. What the F***ck? Oh my F***ck, this spiritual root is so dazzling. I have been cultivating for more than 100 years. Today I finally see a god. Quick, go and make him into a specimen. I want to keep it. I want to eat meat. I heard that it can make me immortal. Just as the unscrupulous voices of the elders spread throughout the mystic cloud hall, stunning all the trial takers in front of the hall, another person coughed and said, "Everyone be quiet. Don't be impatient." After that, there was no more sound in the mystic cloud hall. But the commotion just now had set off a storm in the hearts of the people in front of the hall. Damn it, this Wang Lu is really not easy to deal with. What kind of place is the Lingjian school? It is one of the top 5 sects in the Wanxian League. What have the people in the sects not seen before? But now they were shocked by the spiritual root attribute of a young man from the mountains. Is there any King justice in this world? Is this guy really the son of a farmer from the countryside? Is he really not the illegitimate son of some immortal king in the mortal world? And just as everyone was discussing about this, a beautiful girl wearing a colorful dress walked out of the mystic cloud hall. She held a note in her hand and read it word by word. Everyone, please rest here for a while. We will gather the opinions of all the elders. After half an hour we will choose 3 qualified candidates. After reading it, the girl put away the note and turned around to go back to the hall. But her eyes couldn't help but linger on a certain person for a long time. That certain person was naturally Wang Lu. The girl looked at him with curiosity and reluctance. Compared to her complete disregard for the rest of the people, such a special honor was enviable and could not wait to take his place. At this point, no one doubted that Wang Lu would be on the final list of 3 people selected by the Lingjian school. The way of thinking of a cheater, the nature of his spiritual root, the halo of a love-struck girl. Even the pickiest examiner couldn't find any flaws in him. But Wang Lu was still calm. He was not moved by the exclamations in the hall, nor did he care about the gazes of the female disciples. He just stood there quietly, his posture full of confidence. And at this moment, the beautiful girl walked out of the mystic cloud hall with a note in her hand. Those whose names are called, follow me into the hall. As for the others, the girl raised her head and smiled like a flower. Wash up and sleep. The people in front of the hall held their breath and quietly waited for the result of the trial. Then, Wen Bao, Zhu Qing, Wang Zhong. Chapter 25. The girl opened her cherry lips and read out the names on the list. She put away the paper with a bright smile on her face. However, the challengers in front of the hall felt as if they had been struck by a sword. They were scared out of their wits. Previously, everyone had guessed the qualified list, but no matter how they guessed, it would only be Wang Lu and 2 other lucky people. Among them, Hai Yunfan was the most popular, followed by Zhu Qin and Wang Zhong. However, no one had expected the result to be so unexpected. None of the most popular candidates had passed. Not only Hai Yunfan, but even Wang Lu had been excluded. Where was the justice? The shock overwhelmed the joy. Zhu Qin and Wang Zhong, who were on the list, couldn't even laugh. One of them was desperately pinching his leg, while the other simply banged his head against a tree, causing the branches and leaves to rustle. Only Wen Bao, who was the first to be selected, was naive. He suddenly clapped his hands and laughed, "Oh, I got it." Then he couldn't breathe and fell to the ground. As for the others, most of them were puzzled. This list was too unreasonable and hard to believe. Perhaps this was not the real list, but another part of the test? Was it used to test one's psychological quality? In fact, not only the people in front of the hall, even the elders in the mystical cloud hall were puzzled by this list. Hai Yunfan and Wang Lu had their own reasons for not being selected, but among the 3 people on the list, Wen Bao and Zhu Qin aside, it was hard to say whether Wang Zhong had reached the standard of the Lingjian school. His spiritual root was not bad, but his other qualities were much worse. But as luck would have it, he somehow managed to win the favor of the sect leader. The 9 great elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall were, in theory, equal in status. The favoritism of 1 or 2 great elders didn't affect the overall situation. However, when the great elder said that he thought highly of Wang Zhong, it was reasonable for him to be on the list. The people outside the hall naturally didn't know that the higher-ups of the Lingjian school would have such a biased opinion. They were still confused about the authenticity of the list. Of course, some people weren't so naive. "Brother Wang Lu, this matter, what do you think?" Hai Yunfan's face was gloomy when he asked this question. Others might be lucky, but his intuition told him that the girl's name list was genuine. In other words, this was the final result. Both he and Wang Lu had failed, but Zhu Qin and Wang Zhong were able to embark on the path of cultivation. Wang Lu was also puzzled by this result. F***me, this plot is a bit of a scam. Such a full foreplay, but it's coupled with a torturous ending. Are you guys sick in the head, immortals? Hai Yunfan's heart sank even further. Wang Lu's reaction had undoubtedly confirmed his intuition. Then, do I need to protest, Brother Wang Lu? It's not just a protest. We should immediately gather the Internet Water Army to hype it up. In the name of the Internet Water Army commander, we should gather 40 million fans and kill it. Brother Wang Lu, calm down. Oh, I'm just kidding. Speaking of this, Wang Lu revealed a calm smile that convinced Hai Yunfan. This is actually just right. Just right? Hai Yunfan's eyes widened, trying to see the word good on Wang Lu's face. Little Hai, the scientific name of this scene, is called marriage annulment. It starts with an extremely depressing and unreasonable plot to open up space for the protagonist's future grand ambitions. You and I failed the assembly with top results. Just like the protagonist in the marriage annulment, the more miserable we are now, the more glorious we will be in the future. Don't say that we failed the assembly. It's best if our whole family is killed, our ancestral graves are dug up, and our wives and daughters are raped. That's even better. You and I will ascend to the immortal world in the future, immortal king carefree. F***, Brother Wang Lu, wake up. Seeing that Wang Lu seemed to have fallen into an unreasonable fanaticism, Hai Yunfan was also startled. At this moment, a sigh came from beside him. It's very unsightly. Brother Wang Lu, with your carefree personality, you shouldn't be like this. Wang Lu curiously turned his head. You are? Zhu Qin of the Great Ming Empire. The youth cupped his hands and said, You took care of me in the Peach Blossom Village. Wang Lu said, Oh, I remember. You stole my disciple in the Peach Blossom Village. Zhu Qin was speechless. At that time he befriended Wang Zhong and encouraged him to set up his own sect. His methods were indeed a bit unkind. But at that time Wang Lu was so high and mighty that no one could reach him, so he could only use Wang Zhong. In addition, thanks to you, I was able to walk through the frozen wind valley and come here. My achievements today are all thanks to Brother Wang Lu's help. Wang Lu chuckled. On the immortal path, everyone including me could only look up at your back. It was a difficult journey. Brother Wang Lu, to be honest, in addition to admiration, I do have a lot of jealousy in my heart. You and I are both from the Great Ming Empire. I am a prince while you are just a commoner. But on the immortal path, I am not even worthy to carry your shoes. Zhu Qin's words were touching, but Wang Lu still chuckled. Zhu Qin didn't care about this. He just said to himself, this result is really unexpected. The immortal path is unpredictable. However, Brother Wang Lu, in my heart, your brilliance will not be covered by dust because of this. Therefore, let's be a bit more optimistic. Victory and defeat are common in military affairs. With your talent, where can't you achieve something? Outside of the Lingjian school, there are as many sects as there are stars in the sky. You and I may meet again on the immortal path. Haha. Wang Lu continued to laugh. Zhu Qin's performance was sincere, but Wang Lu had seen many actors who were more professional than him. That's all I have to say. These are just my heartfelt words as an immortal path trial taker. I hope Brother Wang Lu won't misunderstand. Wang Lu nodded. I know I am guilty. I understand. Zhu Qin frowned and couldn't help but say, that? Brother Wang Lu, if your immortal path is blocked in the future, you might as well become an official in the Great Ming Empire. I heard that you are proficient in the scriptures and have the talent to be a scholar. Although I can't inherit the throne in the future, I can still have a say in the Great Ming Empire. Wang Lu said with a smile, Are you looking for a younger brother? Oh, if you are willing to share your Tao companion with me, it will show some sincerity. I can also help you with work. How about it? Let me ride your wife. It doesn't matter if you are too young to have a wife, I can reserve one in advance. Zhu Qin felt as if he had suddenly eaten dog shit in a Taoyu's feast and swallowed it out of habit. Wang Lu was indeed Wang Lu. With just one sentence, Zhu Qin's generous speech turned into water. Okay, Brother Wang Lu, I will remember you. Then, when everyone's attention was focused on Wang Lu and Zhu Qin, the beautiful girl in front of the hall suddenly turned her head, as if she was listening to the secret conversation of the elders in the hall. After a while, she turned to Wang Lu and Hai Yunfan. The master asked me to explain the reason why the two of you were not selected. Although the Lingjian school doesn't need to explain its decisions to others, the situation of the two of you is very special. First, Your Highness Hai Yunfan, according to the results of the Elder's spirit vision, your spiritual root attribute is gentle wind weak water, which belongs to the third grade compound spiritual root. In terms of aptitude, you have already met the requirements of the Misty Peak. Your temperament and comprehension are far beyond. Hearing this, Hai Yunfan couldn't help but ask, then why? I was not selected? Because the others are better than me? Because the Lingjian school doesn't have enough places? The girl was stunned for a moment, then she stomped her feet angrily and said, Don't interrupt me, it took me a lot of effort to remember what Master said, and now I've completely forgotten it. You can guess it yourself. Sorry. Hai Yunfan quickly apologized. The girl pouted unhappily and her ears moved slightly. Obviously, there was another secret conversation in the hall. Oh, the main reason why you were not selected is that the attribute of your spiritual root doesn't match the mental cultivation method of the Lingjian school. Gentle wind weak water belongs to the softest attribute of compound spiritual roots, and the Lingjian school doesn't have a suitable mental cultivation method to match it. Hai Yunfan blinked his eyes. Although it's not that you can't cultivate it, the most suitable mental cultivation method in the Lingjian school can only bring out about 80% of the potential of your spiritual root. This is really too wasteful for you. Hai Yunfan almost cried and laughed. Actually, I'm not such a thrifty person. The girl said very seriously, it's not the same, a third-grade spiritual root. is almost the bottom line for ascending from the path of immortality. Even if there's a slight discount, you won't be able to reach the path of immortality, let alone 20%. Hai Yunfan frowned. Bottom line for ascending? Let's not talk about other things for now. Although the path of immortality is practiced in the cultivation world, have there really been people who have succeeded in ascending? The girl said, there hasn't been since the last age of chaos. Although in theory one can ascend as long as they have a third-grade spiritual root, in reality on the path of cultivation, there will be all kinds of obstacles, causing people to be unable to reach the end. So even if it's a heavenly spiritual route, there's no precedent of ascending. Hai Yunfan was even more amused. Then why do they insist on ascending? The girl said, because this is the immortal gathering and the Lingjian school is a cultivation sect. Why would they accept people who can't ascend? To do odd jobs? Even if there's no precedent of someone successfully ascending in the past thousands of years, if they just let it be and wallow in degeneration, then the Lingjian school would be no different from those third-rate sections. Although we are few in number, we are very ambitious. Everyone was stunned by his words. In recent years, not only in the cultivation world, but also in the eyes of those well-informed people in the mortal world, the Lingjian school was an undeserved reputation, mediocre and a model of muddle-headedness. However, they didn't think that the other party had such a beautiful mind and lofty ambition. Hai Yunfan was so moved that he was about to cry, thinking, damn it, are you trying to kill me? However, in view of your other good conditions, it would be a pity to break your immortal fate because of this matter. Therefore, we consider writing a letter of recommendation to the 10,000 Arts sect. That is the sect with the most extensive cultivation method in the immortal cultivation world. Any strange spirit root can be properly cultivated. Moreover, they are not picky and have no moral integrity, which is far more suitable for you than our Lingjian school. 10,000 Arts sect? Hai Yunfan muttered to himself, and his heart quickly weighed the pros and cons. If the letter of recommendation from the Lingjian school was indeed effective, then no matter from which point of view, the 10,000 Arts sect was the better choice. Although it was not as tyrannical as the Xingjing sect, it was ranked second or third among the top 5 sects, which was on par with the Kunlun immortal sect. Moreover, it could perfectly dig out his immortal cultivation potential, which was better than the 20% discount in the Lingjian school. The result of the weighing was obvious, but deep in Hai Yunfan's heart, there was a trace of hesitation that he couldn't clearly explain. He just felt that if he really chose the 10,000 Arts sect it would not be wrong, but in the distant future perhaps there would be a trace of regret. With that thought, Hai Yunfan subconsciously looked at Wang Lu. Brother Wang Lu, however, without waiting for Wang Lu to answer, the girl from the Lingjian school continued, as for the other challenger, his mind, perception, is simply impeccable, several times better than His Highness Hai Yunfan. As for his spirit root attribute, well, as you guessed, it's the heavenly spirit root. Heavenly spirit root? Moreover, the girl said, and then her smile became even more cheerful, it's the rarest heavenly spirit root, the void spirit root. Void spirit root? Most of the people present had never heard of it. Actually, I haven't heard of it either. Master just told me about it. The void spirit root is said to be the spirit root of immortal Qin and great ancestor Dishing. When immortal Qin unified the 9 regions, great ancestor Dishing single-handedly turned the tide and led the great war of immortals and demons to victory. In the past, immortal Qin and great ancestor Dishing were recognized as the most powerful cultivators in the immortal cultivation world. And after experiencing the age of chaos, they became the existences that people looked up to. Just how powerful were the spirit roots that they possessed? It was probably beyond the imagination of ordinary people. After the shock, they were puzzled. If Wang Lu's spirit root was comparable to those 2 senior immortals, and his character and perception were impeccable, then, what reason did the Lingjian school have to let him fail? Did he have to write a letter of recommendation to the Xingjing sect? No, it's very troublesome to explain, the girl said while blushing with shame. Master, I can't explain it clearly, you explain it to them. Then the girl suddenly held her head and pretended to be in pain. I know, don't yell at me. To put it simply, the rarer and more powerful the spirit root, the better it is. On the contrary, the higher the grade of the spirit root, the stricter the requirements for cultivation. For example, the fire attribute heavenly spirit root almost makes it impossible to cultivate the heart method of the water element. Even if you force yourself to cultivate it, you would only get half the result with twice the effort, and you might not even be able to successfully reach the foundation establishment stage. And among the heart methods of the fire element, only a few of the highest grade can bring out the full potential of the spirit root. In addition, in the process of cultivation, you can't lack the assistance of heavenly treasures, and even the use of magical treasures is strictly limited. Therefore, in the immortal cultivation world, only the first-rank sects and above can cultivate cultivators with heavenly spirit root. Speaking to this, many people have vaguely understood. The girl said, but this is limited to a few relatively common heavenly spirit root. After the first age of chaos, many of the previous cultivation methods were either lost or abandoned because of the change in the surrounding spiritual energy. Some of the cultivation methods of spirit root have been completely lost, and even can't be reproduced. For example, Shengjing sect's elder Dugu obviously has the exceptionally rare calamity spirit root, but because of all kinds of restrictions, he couldn't advance to the deity stage in 300 years. Calamity spirit root is already like this, let alone void spirit root. Even before the age of chaos, there was no comparable heart method that was circulated outside. According to legend, immortal Qin and great ancestor Dishing were able to open their immortal cultivation path through the immortal world. Great ancestor Dishing even clearly recorded that he once went to Kunlun Immortal Mountain to seek the Tao. In 10 years he tasted 10,000 methods, but unexpectedly he couldn't draw the spiritual energy into his body, so. After a pause, the girl still calmly told the cruel truth. So not only Lingjian school nowadays in the immortal cultivation world, there is no sect that can cultivate a cultivator with void spirit root. Let alone Yuanying or deity stage, even drawing the spiritual energy into the body is impossible. The so-called void spirit root, after the age of chaos, is just a rare ornament, only has a collectible value. Chapter 26. The above is the explanation of the void spirit root. I'm sorry we don't have more detailed information here, and I believe there's no other place that has it. After all, no one has seen it for thousands of years. After explaining the details of the void spirit root, the girl went silent, quietly waiting for the audience to digest it. However, considering that you have indeed reached the end of the immortal path according to the rules, you can completely enter the sect. However, if a cultivator who can't cultivate joins the immortal cultivation sect, you must clearly consider the difficulties that you may encounter. The best result is to become a theoretical researcher, but without practical ability. Even if you have a great perception, it's difficult to have a high attainment in the immortal cultivation method theory. You won't be able to reach the high, but you won't be able to reach the low. Of course, we can also issue a letter of recommendation for you. 10,000 Arts sect, Kunlun Immortal sect, and even Xingjing sect may be interested in you. But as for the specific interest, I don't think it needs to be said. Moreover, if we can't solve the problem, it would also be difficult for them. Oh, by the way, Ninth Martial Uncle just added that you can also be considered as the mascot of the Lingjian school. In any case, you have the spirit root of an ancient immortal emperor, so at least in terms of momentum, you can overwhelm Xingjing sect. After saying that even with this girl's natural disposition, she still felt that Ninth Martial Uncle's suggestion was very inappropriate. When she was about to say something, she heard Wang Lu suddenly clap his hands. Good, it's a deal. What? Long live the mascot. Lingjian school, I'm coming. Wang Lu was indeed worthy to be the challenger who set the record in the cloud wave map. His change of stance was so fast, and his decisiveness was so decisive that it nearly scared the bright and beautiful girl sick. You, how could you do that? The girl was completely confused. Wang Lu's reaction was completely different from her master's instruction. Her master said that he might fly into a rage, become disheartened, hysterical, or even argue for what's right, but she didn't say that he would happily become the mascot. Even the nearby Hai Yunfan felt that his jaw was somewhat dislocated. Enduring the pain, he closed his jaw, but deep inside his heart, he couldn't help but crazily roar, "Where's the promise of breaking off the engagement? Where's the promise of starting a new family? Brother Wang Lu, your image in my heart has collapsed a little too quickly." At this moment, the elders in the hall could no longer sit still. A young woman's panicked voice sounded, "Warrior, I was just joking. Don't take it so seriously." In the end, Wang Lu chuckled and asked, "Does your sect's mascot provide food and lodging? Meals and lodging are provided? Is there an establishment? Is there a commission? Do you get paid annual leave?" The ladies in the hall didn't understand and were tongue-tied. Then Wang Lu said, "Since your sect wants me to be your mascot, you won't go back on your word, right? As one of the 5 great sects, It would be a great pity if they were criticized for having no credibility, for going back on their words, for being shameless, and even worse than a cult. As a result, the girl in front of the hall seemed to be frightened. She nervously opened her eyes wide and said, "Ninth Martial Uncle, it's not good to go back on your word. You idiot, whose side are you on?" Then the girl held her head and screamed, "Ouch, ouch, ouch." She was forcefully pulled back into the hall and disappeared. After a long silence, the elders in the Mystic Cloud Hall began to feel awkward about the current situation. As an orthodox ancient sect, Lingjin School attached great importance to its reputation and integrity. It was something that other sects in the cultivation world couldn't understand. However, the mascot issue was too childish. They couldn't just let it go. After a long time, another voice came from the hall. It was also a female voice, but it sounded more mature than the previous Ninth Martial Uncle's voice. There was a hint of cynicism in her tone. "Interesting? You want to be the mascot of Lingjin School?" Wang Lu smiled and said, "I want to be the head of the sect, but you guys have to let me." "Absolutely not, because I also want to be." "Hee, although I don't know why these idiots excluded you from the list, it's not bad to be a mascot. Our Lingjin School is a top sect. The benefits of being a mascot are endless. Even if you can't cultivate, as long as you have the name of Lingjin School, it'll be easy for you to bully others and do whatever you want. Not to mention that Pig and Bird Prince won't dare to do anything to you. In the future, even if you go to the brothel, it'll be free." "Hey, why are you guys stopping me? I'm telling the truth, it's really free." Very quickly, the sound of fighting could be heard in the hall. Then, the woman coughed and said, "In short, the benefits of being a mascot are endless, and the treatment is better than that of an inner disciple. However, you don't cultivate and you're not pretty, so you can't repay the sect at all. Choosing you as a mascot is a waste of the sect's resources. There are no benefits at all." Hearing this, Wang Lu finally couldn't help but laugh. He wasn't laughing at her, nor was he laughing out of anger. The woman who was talking in the room gave him an indescribable feeling. How to put it, it was as if he was listening to himself. Although what she said sounded like a joke, Wang Lu easily understood the true meaning behind the woman's words. She was reminding him of something very important. However, as a professional adventurer, of course, Wang Lu knew that he still had a trump card in his hand that could reverse the situation. "Oh, I understand. If you want to be a mascot, you have to pay the joining fee first, right? Lingjin School is a cultivation sect, so the money in the mortal world is meaningless. You have to use the money from the mountain, right? I happen to have some here, I'll give you 50 cents. Wang Lu sneered and took out an object from his pocket. With a ding sound, it flew into the air towards the mystical cloud hall, which was wrapped in white light. As soon as this object appeared, the hall was in chaos. "Damn, what's that? Why does he have this thing?" "It's actually the Firmament Ancient Coin. Senior brother, is this another illegitimate child of yours?" The 9 elders in the row all had their mouths wide open as they stared at the coin that was flung into the hall. Firmament Ancient Coin. It was just an ordinary coin. It hadn't been refined by a cultivator, and it didn't contain any priceless treasures. However, it was more attractive than any other treasures. This was the Firmament Ancient Coin. Legend had it that the founder of Lingjin School, Taoist Master Xiao Yun, had left behind a few threads of fate in the mortal world. He gave a few coins to people who had helped him greatly, and the person who held the coins could make any request. This kind of story wasn't uncommon in the cultivation world. Many sects had similar items circulating outside. Now that thousands of years had passed, the real Firmament Ancient Coin had long disappeared in the long river of history. It was impossible for it to exist until now. This Firmament Ancient Coin was a replica made by later generations to commemorate the founder. However, the effect was the same. With the ancient coin, one could make any request to the Lingjin School with the reputation of the sect master, Fengyin Taoist master. So far, although no one had actually used it with the reputation of Fengyin Taoist master, no one would doubt its effect. With this Firmament Ancient Coin in his hand, he could even ask the elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall to be his mascot, let alone the Lingjin School's mascot. Of course, if someone really made this kind of unreasonable request, the sect leader could only put aside his old face and resolutely renege on the debt. Unless the person chosen as the mascot was the original 5th elder, then the sect leader would certainly gladly agree. Of course, the key question now wasn't the effect of this ancient coin, but why it fell into the hands of Wang Lu. There should only be one Firmament Ancient Coin in circulation today, and it was in the hands of someone who was very close to the sect master. The 9th junior sister was very puzzled. "Senior brother, is he your illegitimate son?" The sect master was also puzzled. Of course he remembered the firmament ancient coin. He gave it to someone 3 years ago, but how did it fall into his hands? He couldn't figure it out. But it didn't matter if he couldn't figure it out. For this kind of thing, as long as he asked one person, there would definitely be an answer. Thinking of this, the sect master pulled a former elder who was watching at the door and flashed to the top of the star peak. Hey, what the hell is going on? The former elder, who was the sect master's 5th junior sister, was also confused. What do you mean what's going on? The sect master asked. It's that Wang Lu. How did he get Ling Er's ancient coin? The 5th junior sister sneered. Of course it was given by Ling Er. Otherwise, who else could have robbed it? Ling Er gave it to him? How could she do that? The sect master obviously couldn't believe it. Even if she hates me, she wouldn't. The 5th junior sister continued to sneer. Do you remember the bet you made with Ling Er before the immortal gathering? If she can earn 5 million taels of silver before the immortal gathering, you won't interfere with her management of the inn in the Spirit Creek town. Otherwise she will live on the mountain. Then, I don't need to say more about the result of the bet. Ling Er was able to win the bet because of that kid's help. That's why she likes him a lot and can't wait to meet him on the mountain. Moreover, you also know that she hates you, so what's a mere ancient coin compared to her? This? The sect master was suddenly speechless. After a while he asked, what about you? You're just going to watch that brat? But before he could finish, the 5th junior sister became angry. Isn't it all because of you, you old fool? In the Peach Blossom Village I risked my face to get the ancient coin back. But in the end, not only did you stop me, you also cut my salary, right? Alas, who would have thought that you would really do something serious? Moreover, you said it so nicely, but in fact you just wanted to cheat Ling Er's ancient coin for your own use. The 5th junior sister angrily flipped the table. Damn, you don't understand me so well. No. Don't shirk your responsibility after doing something wrong. This matter was indeed the sect master's fault. He was too embarrassed to argue, so he could only change the topic. Speaking of which, this Wang Lu is really powerful. Compared to him, that Wang Zhong doesn't have the demeanor of the chosen one. Originally, he was just trying to change the topic, but he didn't expect that after he finished speaking, the 5th junior sister would stare at him with an extremely terrifying gaze. Even though the Feng Yin Taoist master was a deity stage cultivator, he still felt uneasy under her gaze. What's wrong? Who said that Wang Zhong is the chosen one? Huh? Didn't you say that? Bullshit. When did I say that Wang Zhong is the chosen one? Look at his face, you know it's impossible. What kind of tragic destiny would make him become the chosen one? I was wondering why you looked at him like an idiot for so long. It turns out that you think Wang Zhong is the chosen one? The sect master was also anxious. Are you kidding me? Didn't you say that you wanted to design a checkpoint in the Spirit Creek town that only the chosen one could break, and then the 5th junior sister became even more anxious. Yeah, that's right, and then it was broken by that idiot, right? The sect master's eyes widened. Huh? Wasn't it Wang Zhong who broke the checkpoint? The 5th junior sister slammed the table and stood up. Nonsense, Wang Zhong? Which King plane did you come from? Tell me, where is the real sect master? This time the sect master calmed down. He quickly went through his memories and soon found the problem. I'm ashamed to say that I didn't see it with my own eyes. At that time I only saw it through the door. I was wondering why the legendary figure only had a 3rd-grade spiritual root. At that time I used the power of the stars for other purposes and didn't have time to open my great divination spirit eye. I didn't see that Wang Lu had the void spiritual root. I thought he was an ordinary person, so I mistook him for Wang Zhong. You idiot, you know that you're a blind person who can't even tell the difference between tea and old age, but you still don't wear your glasses when you go out, and you didn't even open your spirit eye. You must have done it on purpose. I'm going to impeach you. Then I'll impeach the next sect master until it's my turn. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.